We debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 21st of April. Today, Suella Braverman leading calls for the Metropolitan Police Chief to quit over what she brands a litany of failures during recent pro-Palestine protests.
Labour have vowed to crack down on yobbish behaviour as shock new figures show 20 million Brits suffered at the hands of troublemakers.
After months of deadlock, the US Congress have united to approve £49 billion in foreign aid for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan.
And we'll be keeping up with the Hopes this morning as we catch up with our political editor Christopher Hope and his children as they set off on the London Marathon.
Good morning. Manchester City reached the FA Cup final for the second successive year, with rivals United looking to join them later today. But City boss Pep Guardiola blasted his players' unacceptable schedule. In the Premier League, Arsenal will turn to the summit. We'll hear about the snooker world champion who hates the limelight.
There's still some sunshine on offer for many of us today, but some rain arriving in the north later. Join me for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Bit of worrying news this morning, Stephen.
Oh, really? What's going on?
Potato prices are soaring.
Are they?
Yeah, it's going to affect our chips and our crisps, which I know you feel very seriously about.
I'm very serious about crisps. I'm not meant to eat them. They're my big downfall. Crisps and peanuts are my big downfall.
Oh, yeah, I know. This is a problem for you. We could see a 25% price hike.
Really?
According to the Daily Mail. Yep.
Why is it, though, when you go buying potatoes, you get some that are quite expensive, but then if you go for I always go for, like, the bog standard, bigger bag, home brand.
Yeah, I go for the red ones.
And oh, do you? But they're quite expensive.
No. think so.
But you can get them for like a third of the price if you buy the supermarket own brand.
Yeah, perfect.
Which is what I do. Are they not quite as fresh or something?
I'm not quite sure, but be warned, could see up to 25%. Apparently it's been too wet.
Oh,
But just you watch, there's going to be hosepipe bans in the summer. It's record rainfall. Apparently it's not been good for the potato crop this year. And lots of other veggies as well. 25% of Britain's fresh vegetables are currently underwater. Not so good.
No, and bad news for the farmers, actually.
Yeah.
Because they're going to suffer with any money they can make. Nightmare. I've just noticed, this is in the Sun this morning, apparently Queen Elizabeth loved it when things went wrong. Samantha Cohen, the Queen's press secretary for 17 years, says Her Majesty loved it when things went wrong and it spiced up her life when a cake was not cutting or a plaque didn't unveil.
Ah.
So she liked it when it all went
She just rolls with the punches. Yeah.
That's quite nice.
It is quite nice.
Apparently she used to have a good chortle.
Well, I think that shows that she has a good sense of humour.
Yeah, oh, bless her.
We miss her, don't we?
We do miss her. We do.
But that's nice.
It's a nice little anecdote, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Should we crack on?
We should, yes.
Well, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is leading calls today for the Metropolitan Police Chief, Mark Rowley, to quit over what she describes as a litany of failures in policing pro-Palestinian rallies.
Yes, the latest scandal embroiling the Met is the force's reaction after an officer used the term openly Jewish to describe an anti-Semitism activist.
Gideon Falter was stopped from crossing a road near a pro-Palestinian march by the officer, who described him as quite openly Jewish.
Well, the force has since apologised, not once, but twice. Well, joining us in the studio is political commentator John Oxley. Good to see you this morning, John. And this is just going from bad to worse for the Metropolitan Police, isn't it?
Absolutely. So this has been developing over the course of the week. Obviously, there's the background already of questions over how they've handled these protests. But there was this incident last weekend that received a lot of publicity. Then they apologised, and they've now actually had to apologise over their apology because it was so poorly worded and seen as just as inflammatory as their first mistake.
Does scrapping the man at the top help? I mean, he's not been in the job very long for a kick-off. I mean, if he can give assurances that things will change, perhaps he's best left in place to get on with that.
Well, this is the long-running issue that we had with his predecessor, Cressida Dick, who came under criticism for different reasons, particularly in the wake of the Sarah Everard case. But part of the question is, if the police are still struggling to find someone who can effect these sort of changes, do we have to think more broadly about an organisation? The current, Mr. Rowley already been criticised around his response to the review following the murder of Sarah Everard and how the police have handled a range of issues. So the question is, if he's not right, is there anyone who can get this organisation acting properly and in the public interest?
It makes you think about the comments from the anti-extremism czar about a month ago, who warned that there were no-go zones for Jews in central London. And the man in the centre of this row, Gideon Falter, the man who was told that he looked openly Jewish, he's written in the Sunday Times today saying that not only are there no-go zones for Jews, but he now says it's a police-enforced Jew-free zone. What do you make of those comments?
I think it's very hard to comment as someone who isn't Jewish, but I think what we're seeing from a number of members of the Jewish community is they are very much feeling that way. And incidents like this show, the police's primary approach here seems to be trying to avoid trouble, but doing so by taking away what they think is going to inflame protesters, rather than addressing the fact that these protests are apparently so volatile that the police consider even the presence of someone who looks Jewish and is wearing Jewish dress a provocation. And I can see why that's exceptionally worrying if you are Jewish.
I mean, you can understand why some people... And it's not that these people don't have a right to protest, as long as it's done peacefully and there isn't the hate language and all the rest of it. But you can understand why people get annoyed in that it seems to be the police are scared of doing anything which would be perceived as, in any sense, racist or against a against a Muslim group or a Palestinian group or whatever it may be.
Yes, and that's exactly the point that's sort of coming out about this, that if there were any other sort of protest and any other sort of minority, the police response wouldn't be that minority has to remove themselves from the area in case it provokes the protesters. It would be, how do we treat this as a public order thing? How do we make sure this minority person is safe? And that would probably mean, you know, some quite robust policing against the protesters, not, you know, pulling this person out of the situation.
Yeah, yeah. It's the whole argument about policing in a without fear or favour, isn't it? Which they don't seem to be doing.
No, and that's exactly it. And they don't seem to be taking on these, you know, protesters when there's potential to become violent in a robust way. And that points, you know, you have to have sympathy with the individual officers on the ground. You know, it shows something wrong about the directions they're being given and the overall strategy. And that's, you know, when you have to ask questions about the senior leadership of the police.
OK. John Oxley, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Sure you'll have a view on that. gbviews at gbnews.com. No, it isn't. It's gbnews.com/yoursay.
I was just going to let you... I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is, yeah. No, it's not. It's gbnews.com/yoursay.
Yes, we've got rid of the email now. But it is that whole without... And it's whatever your views, actually, whether you were pro-Palestinian or pro-Israeli or, actually more sensibly, somewhere just in the middle of all of this, you've got to expect the police to police without fear or favour. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
If they're not doing that, then...
Doesn't appear to be happening, does it?
Then that can't be right.
Well, that's what Gideon Falter said. He says it looks as though the police are sacrificing the rights of law-abiding Londoners to appease lawless mobs. This is disgraceful. Let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/yoursay. Should we cross the pond?
Should we?
Yes, to the US House of Representatives, who have approved a $61 billion aid package for Ukraine.
The Democrats and Republicans joined together after months of deadlock over renewed American support to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion. Now, this was after some objected to sending money overseas instead of spending it on the US-Mexico border.
Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was grateful for the decision, which he said keeps history on the right track.
Meanwhile, Moscow says the passage of the bill would further ruin Ukraine and result in more deaths.
Well, joining us now is Chair of Republican Overseas, Greg Swenson. Good to see you this morning,
Great to be
Greg.
here.
And it's taken months to get to this point, hasn't it?
It really has. So it's in many ways, it's about time. And I think there's the general consensus is that this is great news. Wish it happened earlier.
Why was it being blocked?
I think it was being blocked for good reason. Many Republicans wanted to tie this to the border. And contrary to popular belief where, you know, the argument was we need more money for the border, it wasn't actually money. And in the initial proposals had more funding for the border. From the Democrats, that's not the point. They could flip the switch and shut down the border to a certain degree. So it wasn't as much the money going out the door. It's that the Biden administration decided to open the border when he took over in early 21. So if they had this could have happened, this funding could have happened 2 months ago if Biden had agreed to shut down the border like it was closed during the Trump administration.
And yet, how does it fit within... I mean, I don't know what your personal view is, but for a lot of Republicans who say we are fed up of being the world's policeman.
Yeah, there is that element of the party. There's an isolationist wing in the Republican Party. It's relatively small. You saw that the majority of Republicans, the great majority of Republicans, voted for all of the funding yesterday. It is this fringe kind of extreme element. It's not necessarily conservative. You know, sometimes you read, oh, the conservative wing of the party. That's not the case. The conservative movement is very pro-defense. You know, we endorse military spending. We endorse defense spending. Biden has cut the budget in real terms by 2% for the last 2 years. That's dangerous at a time like this. So, yes, there is this fringe wing, and those are the ones that will probably or possibly file a motion to vacate on Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who really pushed this aid bill through.
I mean, we've just heard from Zelensky there, who says he's very grateful. What do you think this means for Ukraine, and what message does it send to Putin?
Well, it definitely sends a message that the U.S. is willing to support the defense of Ukraine, and this is a good thing. And you know, even this is very Reagan-esque in many ways, where, you know, the Reagan administration was very much behind our allies, behind democracies fighting for their freedom. You had proxy wars going on at that time in Nicaragua, for example. And so this is a way for the U.S. to get ahead of it, right? We'd rather help Ukraine defend itself now than have a bigger problem later. It's actually cost-effective in many ways.
And of course, that also includes, I mean, there's more money going to Israel as a result of this. There's also money going to Taiwan.
That's right. That's right. And then the last element is is forcing TikTok to be sold to an American owner.
Yes.
And that was another priority, but, you know, and that was bipartisan in many ways.
So tell us a bit more about this TikTok
Sure.
part of what was going on yesterday.
Yes, there is that threat that TikTok, you know, being owned by the Chinese, tied to the Chinese to the CCP as well as the PRC. They you know, there's an argument that is data and potential influence peddling that we just can't live with. And, you know, it's similar to restrictions on media ownership or television ownership by foreign owners. And so this was important to, again, it was for the most part bipartisan, and it's a great security risk to have the Chinese owning that kind of data.
Can I ask you about, obviously now, this very strange situation now, obviously, you know, you're going to have Trump as a presidential candidate. You've got the various court cases which are getting underway now, and all more to come before November. I mean, it's all very complex and highly contentious. You were not a Trump supporter in the run-up to all of this. What's your position now? Would you still like? Would you? I mean, as a Republican, because he's your candidate, would you like to see him get in?
Definitely.
But no, come on. See, that's what I struggle with.
Sure.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You I think you were DeSantis.
Yes,
weren't
that's
you?
right. Very much so.
Who was in a lot of respects diametrically opposed to a lot of what Trump was standing for. So if you say, well, I wanted DeSantis and not Trump, how can you then go, well, I'm happy for Trump to go in anyway?
Well, for a few reasons. One is it's a binary choice at this point. It's Trump or Biden, and that, to me, is a complete no-brainer. Secondly, Ron DeSantis, in many ways, was similar to Trump. He was drawing from the same part of the electorate. He had that, you know, sort of traditional conservatives, but also the new populist type, and that was the appeal of DeSantis, and that was also the challenge for DeSantis, because he was drawing from the same part of the electorate, as opposed to Nikki Haley, who was drawing more from the moderate wing or even some Democrats and independents. So Ron DeSantis, in many ways, was like Trump. He's a fighter. He definitely leans toward the populist wing, yet he was much more disciplined. So I thought he'd be a much more effective president than Trump.
Do you not have concerns?
But they're not diametrically opposed.
But the discipline part is interesting. Are you not concerned about Trump getting back in with his lack of discipline, that unpredictability?
Stephen, I'm very concerned about it, right? I mean, it's back in 2016, we were concerned about it. I was more concerned at the time that he would govern less as a conservative and more as a populist or a moderate, because he didn't really have a conservative track record. We were pleasantly surprised when he did govern as a conservative. And if you look at his policies and his outcomes, they were very conservative in nature. But the discipline, you know, was a real headwind for the administration. You know, his sort of unfiltered rhetoric. Sometimes it's refreshing, and I think that was one of the reasons he won in 2016. He was saying what people were thinking. But it does create and it leaves a lot of room for chaos. And there was a lot of turnover in the administration. So, yeah, of course I'm concerned about it. And we've seen that even recently. Now, is that going to be a deal breaker? Is that going to make him completely ineffective? I don't know. But I would argue he's probably going to be better at this than he was in the first administration. You've got a lot of support, a lot of think tanks. I'm told from sort of inner circle that the campaign is remarkably more disciplined than it was in 2016. He's had the experience. So we can expect, yes, we can expect some chaos, and that's just the nature of President Trump. But what we hope for is that he's better at it this time. You've got the Heritage Foundation, for example, putting together what they call the 2025 plan. They are right now putting together a team, putting together, a recruiting platform to make sure that there's effective people in place. One of the things you hear a lot in the media is that, even in the conservative press in America, is that no one that's really skilled or experienced will want to work for him. And that is, I can understand the concept, because he did have problems keeping people in his first administration. But this time, I think that's greatly exaggerated. There's plenty of good people that want to work for him.
OK, we'll be talking to you a lot over the next
Great to see you,
Really
Stephen,
good
Ellie.
to see you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, at 17 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom.
Well, thousands of people have protested throughout the Canary Islands, calling for a limit on tourists. Demonstrators calling for those numbers to be capped, and curbs on development, which they call harmful for residents and the environment. Currently, tourism makes up 35% of the Canaries' economy. 14 million people visiting in 2023, 6 times more than the island's population.
TikTok is one step closer to being banned in the United States following a vote in the US Congress overnight. As part of the £49 billion aid package, TikTok could be banned unless the social media app's Chinese owner doesn't sell its stake in the business. The FBI has warned that TikTok owner ByteDance could share user data such as browsing history, location, and biometric identifiers with China's government.
A record number of people will take part in the London Marathon today. More than 50,000 will race through the capital, raising money for charity. Kicks off at 10 o'clock this morning, and we'll be catching up with our very own Christopher Hope pretty shortly as he warms up for the race.
Now, the Labour Party has vowed to crack down on crime as figures obtained under the Freedom of Information Act have shown charges for shoplifting have fallen by around 16% since 2018.
Well, the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has pledged that a Labour government will get tougher on antisocial behaviour with new respect orders to take on gangs and repeat offenders.
Well, she's also pledged 13,000 neighbourhood police, police community support officers and special constables to restore community safety.
Is this going to be enough? Let's talk to former police officer Oliver Lawrence, who joins us now. Oliver, good to see you this morning. What do you make of all of this? Is it a step in the right direction, or is a respect order just going to be a flash in the pan?
Yeah, good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Ellie. It's very interesting. A huge announcement by the opposition Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, announcing these additional powers or legislation which will be coming through along with additional resources. Now, the announcement of additional resources will always be welcome to any member of the public, but we've got to look at the actual particular problem. Now, antisocial behaviour, there are already more than 32 pieces of legislation, acts, regulation, policy and procedure allowing police officers to deal with antisocial behaviour. So more legislation, more policy, more procedure isn't going to fix it. I would argue that we've got more than enough with more than 32 pieces of legislation already out there. What we need is proper enforcement and proper execution of the legislation by our justice system to make sure that we have penalties for people that commit these crimes in our communities.
What do you make then of the 13,000 suggested neighbourhood police, PCSOs and special constables to restore community safety? Because, I mean, a lot of this surely is about old school policing, isn't it? Bobby's on the beat.
100%. And to be honest with you, PCSOs have proven to be very successful in the past, but I do truly believe we're at a point now where we need police officers that can have the powers of arrest, police officers that can have the power of interview and charge. PCSOs are very restricted in what they can do out on the streets and ultimately need a police officer to support them. So in my view, it's going to have to come back to having, as you say, Bobby's on the beat, more police officer numbers in our communities, liaising with the community members so they can be fed that intelligence so we know who are the individuals causing all the issues and we can take proper instructions to deal with these people properly. But we need an effective criminal justice system. We need our courts to start sentencing people. And that means putting people in prison. And our prisons are bursting at the seams. So we don't need only investment at the enforcement stage. We also need it at the criminal justice end when we put people in prison who repeat offenders.
Which is the issue with all of this, isn't it, Oliver? Because people can say what they like, make these promises and pledges and, you know, right, all sounds pretty good. Even if they stick to their word, the problem is we're not going to see the impact of this for, what, 5 or 6 years?
Stephen, absolutely correct. And what I think is frustrating the public at the moment is I can't remember a time where a chief constable came out and started publicly talking about how they're going to tackle crime. We've got more chief constables racing to get in front of a microphone to acknowledge their force is institutionally racist than we have chief constables racing to the microphone to acknowledge there is an issue with crime and this is how they're going to tackle it. You know, I don't know, and I'm quite concerned what Sir Mark Rowley and Damien Owens have been doing for the past couple of years in London, because I don't think the city is any safer than when they came into power. So we need to have a change of thought around what we're supposed to be doing, how we're going to enact on that, and we need discipline and enforcement.
And what is going on generally, Oliver, with shoplifting in this country? We were talking about it yesterday, weren't we? 1,000 incidents a day happening in this country. And then today we've got these stats out. Charges are down 16%.
Ellie, we just don't have the resources to deal with the magnitude of the problem. You know, sadly, since 2014, as we've seen ridiculous cuts which were enforced by Theresa May, which has really not allowed chief constables and senior officers around the table to deploy resources effectively. And we're watching a problem which has crept up on us, the point we're at now, where we have a problem which is absolutely out of control across the countryside. And you can't have a police officer respond to a theft. You can't, an online fraud. You know, these are all significant challenges that community are facing. And until we see proper funding allocation, until we see proper recruitment, that includes the retention of the staff we've already got, these problems are only going to intensify. It is a real worry, and chief constables and senior officers need to get a grip on it so the community can feel reassured that the police are an effective fighting force.
OK, Oliver, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. I think I agree with him on that one. I do think sometimes we talk about it's all about more resources, and you hear it with the NHS and things. And you say, well, I think there needs to be some reform, at least as well as more resources. With the police, it just seems to be get more out there. I mean, I know you look at what's going on in London at the minute. There's some attitudes need to change, and the way the policing is done needs to change. But for most of us up and down the country, you just need more people out there, more bobbies on the beat.
Exactly. Because it's not working at the moment, is it? Quite clearly. So something needs to be done. You will have a view on that. Do let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay. Should we take a look at the weather now?
Oh.
With another Ellie, not me.
Oh.
Different one.
You could double job.
You're in an Ellie sandwich this morning.
Oh, hooray. It's Ellie Glazer.
A brighter outlook with Bob Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across the North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
that warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, good news this morning. There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a Greek cruise, travel goodies and a £10,000 tax-free cash bank balance boost. I know. Here's all the details you need.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Makes me fancy a Greek yoghurt.
Oh, or a Greek holiday.
I do fancy a Greek yoghurt. I like a Greek yoghurt with a bit of honey in.
Me too.
Oh,
That's what I have most mornings for breakfast. We're very in sync.
We are very in sync.
I know.
Healthy Greek yoghurt for breakfast, pizza for tea. That's me.
Yeah, and then a fry-up at the weekend.
Fry-up at the weekend.
That's what we do. Yep.
We could be cut from the same cloth.
We are very much
Only
so.
my cloth's slightly older than yours.
Wow.
Marginally.
Marginally.
All right, Aidan McGee's going to have your sport next. Lots of interesting stuff, of course, and we'll be looking at the marathon as well later on this morning, as that kicks off at 10 o'clock.
(2024), a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The
People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, welcome back. We're going to go through the sport now. Very manly, yes.
Oh,
very good.
I am. That is very manly. Your voice is breaking all over again. Do you remember that, Aidan?
Voice breaking.
Oh, it was
1992 for me.
Oh,
that was perfect timing.
It's the worst thing ever. Have sympathy for teenage boys. Because when your voice starts going like this all the time.
I remember it happening to my younger brother. We were at the bus station on the way home from school, and he just said hello to a friend of mine who's in my year. And my friend just like jumped back almost as if he was scared.
Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
It suddenly changes.
He was going to start a fight or something.
Dear me. Anyway, away from all these things to the football and Manchester City.
They're through, and somebody's voice definitely has not broken is Pep Guardiola. In fact, he's sounding like a broken record at the moment. He said it's unacceptable that his side played an FA Cup semi-final so soon after playing against Real Madrid in a mammoth semi-final of the Champions League on Wednesday, which they lost on penalties after a 4-4 aggregate draw. Now, they won yesterday. They were a bit fortunate. Chelsea missed a hell of a lot of chances. Nicholas Jackson, the main culprit. There was also a VAR shout against City as well, which was waved away, which should have seen, or possibly should have seen, Chelsea being awarded a penalty. But afterwards, it was all about the schedule. Now, we talked at length this week, haven't we, about FA Cup replays. And it just seems to me as if, I mean, I try not to be cynical about these things, but Pep Guardiola says afterwards the schedule is manic, and he said that we shouldn't be playing on a Saturday when Manchester United are playing today. Why couldn't Man United play at Wembley yesterday to give us the extra day's rest to play today? And it's not as simple as that. You can't arrange travel. You can't have fans buying tickets a month ago and then suddenly saying, well, you know, City have got a game on Wednesday, therefore let's bring the Man United game forward. It's just not as simple as that with transport logistics. I mean, half the time these trains are on strike anyway, and then fans have to book hotels, have to book travel and etc. So it's not as simple as just changing it round. But his quotes were quite strong, Steve, and he said, I just don't understand how we survived. It's unacceptable to let us play today. It's impossible for the health of the players. It's not normal. Now, the reason I say this might be homogenised across the board is because the Arsenal manager then weighed in afterwards and said, I agree with Pep. You can't have a team that hasn't played for 7 days or 3 days before and has more recovery time. It's not right. It's almost as if they're on message together to try and quell this argument that's been going on during the week about the FA Cup replays and the demands that makes on the schedule, because they've seen the Prime Minister weigh in on it, they've seen the leader of the opposition weigh in on it as well, and it looks like they're trying to seize some ground. A bit of a power grab in terms of the debate. It looks a bit fishy to me, but nonetheless, Manchester United are in action this afternoon against Coventry.
OK. And Arsenal are at the top, are they?
Yes, they went back to the top. Now, this is last Sunday. Last Sunday, we were talking about this three-way, this triumvirate of a battle at the top of the Premier League that we've been talking about in recent weeks. One thing we probably didn't go in on enough on last week was pressure. We thought that Liverpool would beat Crystal Palace comfortably. They didn't. They lost 1-0 at home. We thought Arsenal would beat Aston Villa comfortably at home. They didn't. They lost 2-0. So that was 2 defeats. That hands the initiative to Manchester City. So Arsenal had to go to Wolves yesterday and get a result. Our friend yesterday, the 15-year-old, didn't get off the bench yesterday. So,
didn't he?
Yeah, so he may as well have stayed in silence on Friday, mightn't he?
Oh, that's a shame.
It is a bit, but he'll get his time will come. But Arsenal won 2-0. They go back to the top of the league. And although they concede some points with City still, they still are in the bump seat. I think Arsenal did as much as they could yesterday, and then City are in action later in the week against, I can't remember they're playing, but I'll find out.
Someone else.
Someone else. They're playing somebody, yeah. They're playing somebody, don't worry.
Right. What have we got today?
Well,
what's happening in the football?
So City are playing Man United on at 3:30. Now, the guy who manages Coventry, Mark Robins, he's the guy who's widely credited back in January 1990 with saving Sir Alex Ferguson's job. Sir Alex Ferguson hadn't won a trophy in his first 4 years at Manchester United. He goes to Nottingham Forest in January 1990, needing a win. Mark Robins gets a key header against a great Nottingham Forest side, and that sets them up to win that trophy. They went on to win multiple trophies, Premier League, domestically, and in Europe, as we know. And so he's often seen as this pivotal figure. And there he is today. This is how strange football can be, lining up against Manchester United. If he wins today for Coventry, who knows if Eric Ten Hag will survive in a job all these years later, 34 years on. And it's amazing how the poetry just swings around in the wheel of football, isn't it?
Very nicely put.
I could have made it rhyme, I suppose, couldn't I? But can I have a word about this snooker player, Luke Bretzel?
Tell us.
Because he lost 10-9 yesterday against David Gilbert, right? He's the defending champion. But he said afterwards he had a throat infection, but he's also more generally looking forward to not being world champion with all the demands that go with it. Now, I just want to give you an insight as to what sort of year that Luca Bretzel has had, a Belgian. He won £500,000 last May for winning the world title. He promptly spent it, and we can see a picture of this, he's promptly spent half of it on a red Ferrari, which I think we'll see.
Oh, there you go.
It is.
Well, it's a beautiful car.
It is. But if you want to avoid the limelight, is that the car you would choose?
Not really, no, I've got to say.
Well, it wasn't the only car he bought, because he spent £111,000 on a Porsche, and he spent £75,000 on a Range Rover Sport. He also visited 14 countries in 4 months. He went to Marbella with the Arsenal striker, his compatriot Leandro Trossard, and he went to LA to meet the rapper Game. So he doesn't really strike the profile of somebody who isn't comfortable in the limelight. I don't know whether you agree with that. Maybe I'm being a little bit cynical.
He doesn't seem too shy.
No, he's enjoyed some fine dining and he's put on some weight as well, he said.
Oh.
That's his words, not mine. Nonetheless, he's out yesterday. Ronnie O'Sullivan's in action on Wednesday. Mark Selby is in action today alongside Judd Trump. We're getting some decent stories out of the snooker. It's becoming a little bit more showbiz, a little bit like darts.
Yeah. Oh, well, brilliant stuff. Aidan, we'll see you a little bit later on.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Now, do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers next with Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Children's stories like Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland now come with a trigger warning at universities, alerting readers to possible themes of white supremacy.
Yes, these warnings are being applied to colonial narratives, that's the claim, commonly found in adventure stories and famous novels from the Victorian era. Well, joining us now is the actor Charlie Lawson. And Charlie, these warnings have been applied to Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. What's this university getting at?
Well, look, first of all, this is nothing new. We hadn't heard about it for a while. Universities have been doing this over the last couple of years. I remember having a chat with one of your colleagues. But when Gabriella, the lovely Gabby, phoned me up today, I had to beg her to put me on after 9 o'clock because I found myself getting rather irate about the whole thing. But I will do my best to be very polite.
Yes, keep it clean.
Yes, look, which is quite difficult for me, as you'll appreciate, over this subject. Look, this is universities just jumping on the same trying to be relevant bandwagon. Is it any wonder that we look at the quality of graduates from university, and in my humble opinion, some of them are slightly disappointing. But I did phone a couple of people I knew who had sons and daughters at various leading universities, and they had been speaking this morning. And thank the Lord, they think it's a complete load of bloody nonsense, as I do. Give the C.S. Lewis Centre a ring in East Belfast, because that's where your man came from. And I think you'll find you'll get short shrift, because we're not all about that in East Belfast. We don't censor anything.
Welcome back to breakfast. It's 6:39. Should we go through some of the newspaper front pages?
I said thank you there.
Did you say thank you?
I don't know what's happening to me today.
Oh, it's fine. It's a Sunday. We can be relaxed. It's fine.
Oh, fine.
Do you want to go through some of the papers?
Yeah, all right, then you kick off.
Yeah. The Sunday Telegraph leads with Suella Braverman leading calls for the head of the Metropolitan Police to quit after the force threatened to arrest an openly Jewish man during a pro-Palestinian rally.
Sunday Express has migrant flights ready to take off and illegal migrants preparing to learn if they have a place on board on the first deportation flight to Rwanda.
The Observer leads with Labour waging a new campaign to win over Tory-supporting pensioners in an attempt to neutralise one of the government's last remaining electoral strengths.
Mail on Sunday has Angela Rayner being dealt another blow in her two homes scandal after the emergence, allegedly, of a key document signed by her former neighbour.
The Sunday People leads with Just Stop Oil planning to halt flights this summer by storming airports across the UK and Europe in a plan that could cause misery to thousands of holidaymakers.
Oh, that's going to make him popular. Let's talk to the writer and journalist combo, Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones. Good to see you both.
That's a new one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Combo, like crime fighters.
Yeah, or like a good pizza. Emma, let's have a look at the Sunday Telegraph, should we, and Suella Braverman. Not one to keep quiet.
Not one to keep quiet. Former Home Secretary is weighing in on this row. So this is last Saturday's one of the ongoing pro-Palestinian rallies in London when Gideon Falter was crossing a road in central London. He was crossing Aldwych on his way back from synagogue. And he was approached by the police and he was told that just being there, just his presence, being openly Jewish, as they put it, was somehow a provocation, sort of possibly even an antagonism, possibly possibly even cause for arrest. This is all blown up, and many people have highlighted the fact that the Met Police have not necessarily been the most even-handed in this, that they have tended to, well, people are even saying, look, let's be honest, that there's institutional anti-Semitism. In this article, this is what people are talking about. So Suella Braverman is saying that the Met chief, and this is the end of lots of Met scandals. This isn't just, you know, just happened. She's saying that Sir Mark Rowley, the Met chief, should quit. She's talking about the disrespectful handling of Jews at the rallies. She says too much fear and even more favouritism is seen in the policing of pro-Palestinian protests. And Gideon Falter says, which I think is really powerful, he says London is becoming a no-go zone, even a police-enforced Jew-free zone, which is incredibly sad for 2024, and yet is what many people are feeling as Jews. They are feeling that they are not welcome, certainly not safe, but not welcome on the streets. He wasn't even a counter-protester. He wasn't even there. He was literally just going about his business with wearing a kippah, wearing his skull cap.
I thought it was really powerful, actually, reading his article that he's penned in the Times this morning, saying that if we are no longer welcome on the streets of London, it is the end of the world. Because people are saying to him, is it really the end of the world if you can't cross the street on a Saturday? Well, it is, he says.
Just for being who he is, you know, not even expressing a view.
Yeah, and the article in the Times that the gentleman writes, and it is a really moving article, he talks about how people with face masks, balaclavas, completely covered, were pointing at him, shouting scum and all sorts of other things that I can't say on air. And the police sole interest was moving him away, obviously not necessarily because they wanted to arrest him, for his own protection. The police are saying it's easier to move an individual away for their own protection than to arrest people for breaking the law. And we have a situation in Britain...
which is true. I mean, to try and look at the other side, because that's what we've got to do. In some respects, if you're saying, I'm worried for your safety... Here,
yeah, that's what it was, yeah.
If I'm worried for your safety, you're probably better off not being here. It's a threat of arrest and is a slightly odd thing, and it's certainly not right.
But we're reaching a point where the police are having to manage situations not on the basis of rule and law, but on keeping social order, because they simply don't have enough police to manage these large organisations. This pro-Palestinian protest, the police said to him, this is a pro-Palestinian march. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction of your presence. If we're in a position where somebody can't walk down the street with a yarmulke on because it might inflame situations, that's an astonishing thing for the police to admit. And that's from a frontline police officer who I dare say was just trying to do the right thing. I don't think this police officer is a foaming anti-Semite. Trying to keep disorder, we are creating a situation where certain groups of people are allowed to do absolutely whatever they want, wear balaclavas, wave flags, lock building, prevent people from going about their daily business, preventing businesses from opening, because it's easier to allow them to do that than to enforce law. And we simply don't. It's not. We don't need more laws. We need enough police officers so that we can enforce the law as it is. Because the police officers themselves and the members of the public are completely unable to have a law-abiding society as it stands.
Andy, let's stay with you, shall we, and look at the Telegraph front page as well. But this is a totally different story. We must not flinch from flying the St George's flag, says Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah, flag waving of a different kind, a slightly more positive variety. Sir Keir Starmer says we must celebrate St George's Day with enthusiasm. He reintroduced, of course, the national anthem being sung at party conferences for the Labour Party in 2022. He now says that we must be waving the flag at Labour events. We must be embracing St George's Day with enthusiasm, and we must be singing the national anthem with enthusiasm at Labour events. However, the very fact that he has to even say this sort of thing would suggest there is a little bit of a problem within the Labour Party in terms of embracing our national identity. And we had David Lammy a few weeks ago talking about the fact that he was astonished that some Labour MPs wanted to remove the British flag, English flag, on party leaflets because it didn't go down well in certain communities.
He was astonished, was he?
Well, he was astonished, but he said that he was rather annoyed that he had to say, actually, maybe in running for government in Britain, we should have the British flag on. But I agree with...
I mean, we only had... oh, Lord, what's her name? Emily Thornberry. We talked about this just a few weeks ago, but it's not that long ago. She was mocking
10 years,
people with the St George's flag outside, hanging out the window.
Yeah, Sir Keir Starmer was talking about the times when he's felt proudest to be British, and one was belting out 3 lions at Wembley, according to him, and another time was reaching the peak of Scafell Pike, England's highest point, with his mother. So he's obviously been, carefully briefed on what could be really Englishy things that won't that won't inflame anybody, that won't kind of antagonise the Scots and the Welsh. This is him really going. I mean, Labour are going for it, aren't they? They're trying to, in another part of the papers, they're trying to single out the over 65 to sort of fence off that vote for themselves. Now they're going for people who are deeply patriotic. They don't want to leave any quarter unchallenged in the run-up.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think it's interesting that the Telegraph have interviewed Sir Keir Starmer and put this interview on the front page, and it seems to be quite a positive message from Sir Keir Starmer that's got on the front page of the Telegraph, and I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think we should be more patriotic with St George's Day on Tuesday?
Certainly, yeah. I don't think most people even knew it was St George's Day on Tuesday. I know there's all this sort of stuff about St George wasn't even English, British and all this whatever, but I think we need a stronger sense of national identity. I'm not saying that it has to be one thing or another, but I think having a shared set of values, a shared set of beliefs, broadly speaking, I welcome a sort of multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-everything else Britain.
Doesn't mean you can't celebrate being British.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have to have a shared central values. Yeah, I don't... It's a very bizarre... There's another story in the Times with an unnamed piece from a British teacher who asked how many people in this classroom hate Britain, and 30 kids put their hand up. And I think we've got this bizarre sort of thing where we're told to hate Britain and hate ourselves and not talk about Britishness, not wave flags, not sing songs. I think it's absurd.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think we shouldn't feel ashamed of being proud of our country, and that's what I've felt over recent years, that you somehow, you're on the borders of racism or xenophobia if you are proud of Britain, and think that, British values or being English and being proud of England as well are somehow worth upholding. Because that doesn't mean that, as Andy says, it doesn't mean that you don't welcome people of all faiths and none, all different cultures, absolutely. But, you see it in nurseries and schools, and this kind of apologeticness about celebrating what are our cultures and traditions.
Yeah, it's very odd. Can we have a look at this? Intrigues me. It's in the Sunday Telegraph, Emma, about the Iron Dome, because we were talking. What was we talking to
Mark
the
Francois.
other day? Oh, Mark Francois, who was on the Defence Select Committee, saying, the Defence Select Committee, which is cross-party, of course.
Yeah.
Have called for an Iron Dome system, but it's trying to get it financed.
Yeah.
Penny Mordaunt's joined the calls for that.
Yeah, and this is being seen as her sort of on manoeuvres. This is sort of a bid for Tory leadership.
Yeah.
And she is a former Defence Secretary, but this is not normally within her brief. She's head of the House of Commons. But she's calling... basically, this is since the Iran missile attack, the drone missile attack, but launched by Iran against Israel. A lot of response to that. And she's now saying, would Britain be able to defend itself in the same way? She's saying that she's publicly urging Rishi Sunak to increase spending on defence, calling it a duty to our citizens. And many people have been saying in recent weeks and recent months, but, we are just not prepared for the level of threat, the global instability at the moment. How would we be in this position? Penny Mordaunt says, to those that say about our defence ambitions, we can't do it, we shouldn't do it, we can't afford it, she says, I say, look to Israel, a nation a fraction of our size that has staved off an attack from a nation 10 times its size. What would we do in that position? And we are just simply not equipped for that kind of level of threat.
Yeah. Sure, and it's not just about investment, it's also about efficiency and competence. As we've seen on this programme in recent months, we talked about billions being spent on tanks that can't fire on the move, money spent on Trident, and yet when we did a test launch of missiles the other week, we almost fired the missile at ourselves and then fired it accidentally at America. I mean, it's not necessarily... My issue with having an Iron Dome would be it'll be done with private finance, it'll be done with private companies, there'll be about 17 different companies working on it, and we'll have an Iron Dome that accidentally fires missiles at ourselves or something ridiculous. And the second thing, which isn't discussed, an Iron Dome doesn't protect you if you can't protect your borders. Israel has very, very strong borders. They know who's going in, they know who's going out, previously before October the 7th anyway. With Britain, a position where people can just literally float on a dinghy and then and walk into Britain, Iron Dome's not going to protect you, is it? Because you can just load up whatever sort of attack, terror, threat, missiles, bombs on a boat and float it over. If your border is porous, an Iron Dome does not protect you.
Well, Yes, that's an interesting point. Never thought of it like that.
No.
So we've got organisational efficiency and investment problems with Britain when it comes to defence.
Even if we did get an Iron Dome, how many years would it take to put into place?
Exactly.
It'd be a long time. It'd be a huge programme.
Yeah, I mean,
huge investment as well.
No, I think there's a sense that they do need to boost defence spending, but also the Home Office as well. I mean, the Foreign Office, the Home Office, so many things are just not fit for purpose at the moment. I think we're coming to the end of 14 years of underinvestment and mismanagement, and it feels very, very tired and very broken.
Yeah. I mean, if
the
you
immigration system doesn't work. Deportation doesn't mean deportation. We may be getting flights off the ground to Rwanda, 200 people, maybe, when we've got a backlog of thousands and thousands of people who have had their asylum claims turned down and need to be leaving the country. Thank you very much.
Well, that leads us on very nicely to the Express front page, Andy. Migrant flights are ready to take off.
Yeah, they've been ready to take. I mean, it's not the flights aren't the problem. It's the legality of getting them in and out of the country. And you know, the government is talking about they are looking forward to hand picking the first 200 passengers to leave if, and they always have the big word, if the government's flagship bill clears Parliament on Monday.
Oh, well,
but again, they have this other problem of legal... They get these bills passed and then there'll be a legal intervention to stop the bill. There'll be a legal intervention because lawyers, as ever, there'll be this sort of arms race to try and create a situation that overlooks the bill for individual cases where their human rights will have to be considered. And then you have the secondary problem of people on board these flights, and they're always commercial flights, after all, where passengers then try and stop the plane from taking off. There's a situation where Air France staff stopped a flight taking off because they disagreed with a passenger on board being deported. I mean, we have to have a situation where the government has complete control of this, both legally and also why are they putting these people on commercial flights anyway? You know, I mean, if it's costing us all of these hundreds of millions of pounds to get people in the country, surely having non-commercial flights leaving the country where they can actually control, one, when the flight takes off, two, who's on it, and three, where it's going to land. But yes, whether you agree with the Rwanda bill or not, we've spent hundreds of millions of pounds out there now, and we haven't even sent anybody. And we don't even seem to have control of whether people can leave or stay.
Oh, dear. It's such a farce. I mean, we are beyond farce now. We don't actually have any airlines confirmed because airlines and insurance and all of that, they don't want to go near this scheme.
Mm-hmm. No.
As you say, Andy, it'll be endless legal appeals. It'll be endless, human rights appeals. That, lawyers are rubbing their hands.
That's what this legislation is meant to stop.
It's meant to stop. Yeah, well, then we need to be tougher about enforcing it. But, I mean, a couple of hundred people at a cost of, hundreds of millions of pounds already. Do we really have the accommodation out in Kigali? All of this stuff is just still fuzzy. It's been ping-ponging back and forth. The unelected, undemocratic House of Lords keep blocking it, sending it back, frustrating the will of the people. I just don't know where. I mean, Rishi Sunak has chosen this as an absolute obsession, this fixation that Rwanda will get through because it's one of his pledges.
Gonna get it.
And he's still not stopping the small boats.
All right, let's lighten things up, should we, and talk about the dangers of being a nudist.
I really don't want to talk about the seagulls. Ugh.
Oh, don't you?
Psycho Seagull tried to peck off my pecker. I mean, it's the most Daily Star headline I've ever seen. In my excitement, I think I've dropped the Daily Star. But I think this was a nudist at a nudist colony. Have you been? I don't know.
To a nudist? No, I've never been to a nudist colony, no.
If you want to go, it's at Flatholme Island in South Wales.
Oh, you've done your research.
Well, I read the story, because apparently that's my job. But
so they say it looks like it could be a chipolata or a sausage, and they've got a funny Daily Star picture of a seagull holding a sort of sausagey chipolata thing, and a nudist at the camp is claiming that it tried to attack his private parts.
Yeah. And a local expert in seagull behaviour said it was a naturist's day, but also it's seagull nesting season.
Well, they're going to be protective, aren't they, or feeding or hungry?
They're looking at your nest, This is what it is.
Wow.
Well, fair
quite cold time of year, though, to be out to being a nudist. Yesterday was absolutely freezing,
it
wasn't it?
I wouldn't fancy it. If it was boiling hot, well, I'd be the first to...
Well, if it's boiling hot, you do feel that you're happy to just drift around in your colony. But, I mean, really, yesterday, I think everybody needed their big jackets on and the heating and...
Yeah, exactly.
Extra jumpers.
Put your big coat on.
Seagulls are out of control, aren't they?
There you go.
They are,
actually. Very brazen.
Well, they are. There you go. I like a seagull, personally.
Do you?
Yeah. Anyway, you two, thank you very much indeed. We shall see you a little bit later on.
And let's take a look at the weather, shall we? See if it's still going to be freezing cold today. Ellie will tell us.
a brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across the North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock on Sunday, the 21st of April. Today, Suella Braverman leading calls for the Metropolitan Police Chief to quit over what she brands a litany of failures during recent pro-Palestine protests.
Labour have vowed to crack down on yobbish behaviour as shock new figures show 20 million Brits suffered at the hands of troublemakers.
After months of deadlock, Congress have united to approve a £49 billion aid package for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan.
We'll be keeping up with the Hopes this morning as we catch up with our political editor, Christopher Hope, and his children as they set off on the London Marathon.
And as Wales looks like it's going to reverse, at least in part, the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, we'll debate whether they're right to U-turn on the policy.
Good morning. It was a big day at the top and bottom of the Premier League, with Arsenal returning to the summit with a win at Wolves and Burnley giving their survival hopes a boost with a 4-1 win at Sheffield United. We'll be looking ahead to Manchester United's FA Cup semi-final with Coventry at Wembley, as well as the Chinese Grand Prix.
There's still some sunshine on offer for many of us today, but some rain arriving in the north later. Join me for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
It's interesting on the Iron Dome issue we were talking about in the papers. The Defence Select Committee would like an Iron Dome. Now Penny Mordaunt's jumping on the bandwagon. You're not so sure. I mean, it's not that you don't like the idea. Julian says, Iron Dome, we can't even stop rubber dinghies or shoplifters.
Wow.
It's a fair point.
Yes.
To be honest.
Talking about national pride, because Sir Keir Starmer is saying that we should fly the St George's flag with pride in the papers today. Andrew Brown says a national identity is seriously lacking, especially in England. It's the birthplace of the world's most widely spoken language, and that alone should be a major sense of pride. Shakespeare's Day is also on the 23rd of April, and it should be a national holiday, acting as a focus for the celebration of art and literature of this country.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people would support that idea.
Yeah, I think so.
Being a national holiday.
I mean, it does irritate me slightly that we do so much for St Patrick's Day, don't we?
Yes.
We celebrate St Patrick's Day more than St George's Day.
Why is that? Because I think that's around the world as well, I think.
It is around the world, it is, but it's irritating, isn't it? But is it because it's become more commercialised, partly?
I think maybe because it's associated with drinking. That's maybe what that is. So you go to the bars on St Patrick's Day. Let us know what you think. Do you think that St George's Day should be a national holiday? Should we be more patriotic in this country? Do let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Now,
You really have to think.
You do.
Stop and think.
GBviews at gbnews.com was great. It was very catchy.
I know, it just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll get used to the new one.
But you're certainly used to it. They are coming through thick and fast this morning, so
are.
thank you very much.
Yes, how many comments have we had of it recently?
25,000... something.
5,000, 35,000, 235,000 comments on there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big number.
That is a big number.
Anyway, right, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is leading calls today for the Metropolitan Police Chief, Mark Rowley, to quit over what she describes as a litany of failures in policing pro-Palestine marches.
Well, the latest scandal embroiling the Metropolitan Police is the force's reaction after an officer used the term openly Jewish to describe an anti-Semitism activist.
Well, Gideon Falter was stopped from crossing a road near a pro-Palestine march by the officer, who described him as quite openly Jewish.
Well, the force has since apologised twice. Well, let's speak now to GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who is with us in the studio. Good morning to you, Catherine. And this is just going from bad to worse for the Metropolitan Police, isn't it?
It really is. And last night, the head of the Met Police, Sir Mark Rowley, issued another apology. He said, I personally reiterate our apology. Went on to say, our officers will continue to police with courage, empathy and impartiality. But the problem, of course, is that there's plenty of people think that they're not policing with impartiality. So we've got the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, saying Sir Mark Rowley should go. Sir Mark Rowley has been summoned to see the policing minister next week because he says he's very concerned. The Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, has said about the Jewish community, it's hard to think of any other minority that would be treated as disrespectfully as Jews seem to be. But he has gone on to say that the police have a hugely difficult job, and indeed they do, policing these protests.
I mean, the issue is, though, with this, and what is worrying, is he says we will continue to police. Well, they don't appear to be doing it in the first place.
Well, Yes, precisely. And I would say, I mean, I've been at a lot of these protests. I was at a pro-Israel protest yesterday, members of the Jewish community, a few dozen, singing, chanting, waving banners saying, "We will not be cowed." There was a small pro-Palestine protest on the other side of the road, but the members of the Jewish community hugely outnumbered them. But that is very unusual because week after week, we see tens of thousands of people marching in central London, and you know from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, which many Jews think is deeply anti-Semitic. You can pick those up. The Socialist Worker print banners saying that, and there are hundreds of people marching through London with that on a banner, and the police don't do anything. What I would say, though, is you know, it is hard for the police because there's not very many of them. There's huge numbers of protesters. And this chap was filmed on the same day with another policeman saying to him, look, the problem is there's so many of them. If you are attacked, there's not enough of us to keep you safe. So I think that is what is behind it. But of course, Jewish people, indeed anybody, should be free to walk through the capital city at any time.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we were talking yesterday, weren't we, Catherine, about the anti-extremism czar and his message about a month ago now, saying that some parts of central London had become a no-go zone for Jews. And it struck me, Gideon Falter writing in the Times this morning, saying that not only that, which has been said previously, but it's now a police-enforced Jew-free zone.
Yes, precisely, because the policeman effectively said to him, you need to go away because you are openly Jewish. Otherwise, we may have to arrest you. I mean, I think the threat of arrest for simply walking around would be particularly offensive. Lord Wolney, who's an independent advisor for political violence to the government, he has said he thinks that the Met Police is guilty of institutional anti-Semitism.
That's going to be interesting. I think he's appearing on Camilla Tominey's show this morning.
Yes, he is.
So that'll be interesting. OK, Catherine, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm fascinated by, on a personal level, I'm fascinated by Lord Wolney, as he is now, because when he was campaigning to be MP for Barrow and Furness, Labour and Co-op...
Your neck of the woods.
My neck of the woods. So, I mean, I knew I used to meet up with him and have a chit-chat and all the rest of it, before he was ever elected. And now look at him, he's been a Labour MP, and now he's a member of the House of Lords. So he's a nice fella. He's a nice fella who's got his head screwed on. And he said, what was interesting is he fell out with the Labour Party, really, over Corbyn and all the Corbyn's anti-Trident push, because, of course, Barrow is where they build the Trident subs and all the rest of it. So he stood up for the area.
Yeah.
He really stood up for the area. So that's...
So he's popular there.
That's something.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what he says to Camilla Tominey then at 9:30. You won't want to miss that. That should be really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah. Now, it's that time of year again. London Marathon is upon us.
Yes.
Hurrah.
Yes, this year organisers are expecting a record number of finishers, with over 50,000 people expected to complete the route.
Yeah, they're all great fundraisers, all slightly mad, of course.
Crackers.
That goes without saying. And someone who, well, we knew he was slightly mad anyways, our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's busy warming up this morning alongside his kids. Morning, Chris.
Morning, Stephen. Morning, Ellie. How are you both?
Yeah, we're all right, but we're sat in a studio. We're not going to run 26.2 miles today. How are you not feeling?
Yeah, we're OK. We had some pasta last night, and it's a nice day, I think, and we feel ready. I've got the crucial thing that you need in a marathon, Ellie and Stephen. Are you ready for this? Not advertising, but Vaseline. That's the key thing. that will go everywhere.
Oh, I hate to say it. Is that for nipple rub, Chris? Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. But we're running for Scope with the disabled charity. Our daughter Pollyanna, of course, lost a leg in that bus crash 17 years ago on Thursday next week. very sadly, my wife Sarah's mother was killed in that crash. So it's something we've been part of our lives for so long. But we want to raise money for Scope, which advocates for disabled people. 16 million people in this country are seen as disabled. So it's a group which we think is very important. And thanks to everyone for their support.
No, it's just the most important cause. And we spoke to Barnaby and Sapphire yesterday, Chris. You must be so proud of the two of them. I believe Barnaby's done a marathon once before, but I believe it's Sapphire's first marathon. So what advice have you got for both of them today, and how are you guys feeling?
That's right. Well, yeah, it's his second.
I was more nervous about this, I think, than the marathon. But
I'm feeling really nervous. It's my first one.
The first one's always the best one. So.
The trick I'm saying to him is to run it naked. Now, what that means is. What that means, sorry, behind me...
Explain yourself.
My wife Sarah with our dog.
Run it naked, explain yourself.
What that means is you don't wear any earphones. Nothing else, Stephen. No earphones.
Soak up the atmosphere.
So you can be in the moment. Because it's so amazing. I've got my nickname on my chest here. And that's so, as you run along, everyone shouts, "Come on, Chopper."
Right.
Oh,
so
can
the
we
trick
see
is run it without any earphones in.
Can we see the three of your vests? Sorry, just because
yes,
we've all got nicknames on the front of our vests there, so let's just have a look at them.
Barlow, Chopper and...
Sappho? Is that Saf or Sappho? Sappy.
I put hearts on mine.
Very nice, Sappy. I like that.
Sappy.
But they refused the hearts. I tried to put hearts on them.
Sapphire's the artist. She did the names.
Yeah.
Quite neatly. But in 2021...
And we've got a huge team cheering us on. My wife Sarah's there with our dog Queenie. And we've got other friends and balloons. And what happens is all your friends give you mile points to look out for them because it's so intense.
So the only people that are going to be worse than us today are the people next to the people cheering us on, I think.
I think your wife's gone slightly mad there, Chris.
I
think she's irritated and wondering why you sat in front of the computer. Oh, dear me.
Dear.
She's a bit...
What's going to keep you going in those low moments, do you think? Because it is going to be tough out there today and lots of runners running alongside you. What keeps you going in those moments where it does get a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging?
OK, Safa.
I think definitely the supporters and the people screaming and shouting, even people you don't know. I did the Bristol Half Marathon last year, so that got me through that, and I feel like I'm going to doubly need it this time round.
Oh, look, you'll...
I haven't had a beer for a couple of weeks, so that.
Well...
And
Barnaby just makes me laugh so much.
He's looking for a pint. Looking forward to a pint. For me, it's just it's the finishing feeling. That's what you want. That feeling of finishing, Stephen and Ellie.
Yeah. And Chris, just before we let you go, we didn't know this about you. You were just the dog's back. Queenie's back. Hi, Queenie. She's the star of the show. Forget you three. That's what we're really interested in. But Chris, we didn't realise you were such a keen runner. You do 30k at the weekend. Your kids were telling us all your secrets yesterday. You just casually do 30k at the weekend, just as a standard. Forget the marathon.
Maybe not.
Yes, I've got a bit addicted to it.
He's weird. He's really weird.
It's my fifth marathon today, so I love it. It might be my final one. I always say never again as soon as you finish, and then gradually the drug seeps back into your veins over the years, and you want to do it again. It's a funny thing, running. It is quite addictive in a weird way, but yeah. Anyway, cheer us on. Cheer on Team Hope.
We will be doing.
We will.
Be doing.
And Queenie as well.
Yeah, good luck to all of you.
Yes, good luck. Good luck. It's going to be a fantastic day for a fantastic cause. Oh, just quickly, how do people support you? Have they gone already?
They've gone.
Oh, wait, sorry, how do people support you? Let us know.
Yes. It's justgiving.com, justgiving.com/fundraising/Sapphire-Hope.
Oh, there you go.
Wonderful stuff.
Get a few more quid in for you for a very good cause. Thanks all. See you later. Best of luck.
Good luck, all of you, and thanks, Queenie. That was chaos, and I loved it.
I'm not sure Mrs. Hope was too impressed that they were all on the telly without her.
She wanted to be involved, didn't she? She made herself involved.
You liked that, Catherine, didn't you?
My favourite quiz openings ever. It was fabulous. I mean, he was a bit upstaged by Queenie, though, wasn't he? I know.
It's just... This is Hope looking furious in the background.
Yeah,
I can't quite get over
It was
that.
like something out of The Lion King, this dog just being held up to the screen. Wonderful stuff. Chaos, absolute chaos. That should be quite fun today, shouldn't it? You don't know what to make of it.
I really don't. It's a... Anyway, should we have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning?
Yes, let's, because thousands of people have protested throughout the Canary Islands calling for a limit on tourist arrival. Demonstrators are calling for a limit on tourist numbers and curbs on development, which they call harmful for residents and the environment. Currently, tourism makes up 35% of the Canaries' economy, where 13.9 million tourists visiting in 2023 were about 6 times more than the island's population of 2.2 million.
TikTok, that's a social media app if you're as bad as me, is one step closer to being banned in the States following a vote by the US Congress overnight. It could be banned unless the Chinese owners don't sell it or don't sell their stake in it. Anyway, the FBI has warned TikTok owner ByteDance could share data user. Or user data.
User data. Anyway, we're losing the will here. As we were just hearing, a record number of people are going to take part in the London Marathon today, including Christopher Hope and his children. 50,000 people are going to race through the capital today, raising money for charity. And it all kicks off at 10 a.m. There's a lot to unpack from the last few minutes there. Anyway.
Dear me.
I wonder if Queenie's going to London today. That was the question we should have asked.
Queenie? No, should be... Well, that's not where they live, so it's maybe...
Well, according to that strap, it was Harpenden, wasn't it? I'll ask Christopher Hope if Queenie's going, and I'll let you know.
Yes. Right, let's see what the weather's going to do for all you London Marathon runners and the rest of us across the country. Here's Ellie Glazer.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across the North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, I have to say that, but I didn't pay any attention to that weather forecast. So what did she say to get back? We'll have a look a little bit later on. We're just too caught up in gbnews.com/your views. You've got lots to say this morning.
Yeah, on the London Marathon, John says, just want to say to people doing the London Marathon today, all of the best wishes. It's just a bit of banter. Just go have a laugh.
Yeah, and Norma says, we had a St George's Day parade in our little town of Ashington in Northumberland with military and 5th Fusiliers. Fantastic turnout. Nice to see the community come together.
Oh, and this is nice. Manchester Girl says, go Chopper, go Barno and go Safi. There you go. She took note of the...
Of the T-shirts.
Of the nicknames, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Very good. Right, there's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a Greek cruise worth 10 grand. Travel goodies and a £10,000 tax-free cash bank balance boost.
Yes.
Here are the details.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come, the Welsh Government are expected to do a U-turn, well, in part, on drivers having to drive at 20 miles per hour on some roads. But are they right to do it? We're going to be discussing that next.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people. To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
We'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, drivers in Wales may not have to adhere to the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on some roads, with a few reverting back to 30 miles per hour.
Yes, quite how many, we don't know yet. The Welsh Government expected to announce changes to the law that saw Wales become the first country in the UK to adopt the speed limit in built-up areas, practically everywhere.
Yes. Well, we're now joined by Welsh Conservative Shadow Minister for Education, Tom Gifford, and motoring expert Adrian Mills. Very good to see you both this morning. Let's start with you, Tom. This was controversial in the first place, wasn't it? What do you make of this U-turn on some roads?
You're right. This was a really controversial piece of legislation, the most controversial in the history of Welsh devolution. Nearly 500,000 people signing a petition against the changes. That's roughly 1 in 6 people here in Wales. And the reason they signed it is because it was, adopted in this kind of blanket approach, whether it made sense in local communities or not. That was adopted. Now, I welcome the fact that the Welsh Government are rowing back on some of these changes, but, the leader of Cardiff Council said this week that materially it would be about 6 roads in the whole city of Cardiff that would change as a result of the changes the Welsh Government are going to announce this week. And the problem is, despite any change in the legislation, the default limit will still be 20 miles an hour.
Adrian, what do you make of it all?
Well, it's interesting to hear what gentleman was just saying there, because I always think the Welsh are a bit like the French. They'll scream and shout and they'll go out and protest, whereas the English just go, oh, yeah, we'll suck it up and see. You have to think with your head. Yes, it's very good to be sort of, react with your heart and sort of go, oh, yeah, we need 20 miles an hour, we need 30 miles an hour. But the statistics say one thing. You drive at 30 miles an hour, and if you drive at 20 miles an hour, the difference is you are 5 times more likely to be killed in a car crash by the extra 10 miles. So therefore, if you live in an area where there are children, say where I do, where there are children, old age pensioners, dogs, there's a stables with horses, 20 miles an hour makes incredible sense. However, I do agree with that sense that governments and councils have gone for a blanket ban on so many roads that I was in a taxi the other day and the guy said, look at this, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving down a 2-mile road, used to be a Roman road. There's nobody around, but I'm doing 20. In fact, I'm doing 18 miles an hour. I felt I could have got out and walked and been in bed by the time he parked outside my house. So there has to be sensible thought.
Yeah, as I was going to say, Adrian, it's a sense of needing common sense on this, is it?
Yeah, of course it's common sense. I mean, to be perfectly frank, I hate the fact on many roads that I have to drive at 20 miles an hour. But unfortunately, that is the law. And if you look at the statistics in London, deaths are down by 25%, collisions are down by 36%, and collisions with children and adults where they haven't died, may have gone to hospital or hopefully have been able to get up and walk away, are down by 63%. Now, you can argue, yes, we want 30 miles an hour across. And don't forget, sorry, I'm interrupting myself here, but at 30 miles an hour, a lot of people drive beyond that. What you'd work on the assumption is that at 20 miles an hour, I suspect people drive a little bit over that, unless they, of course, get picked up by the police. And one thing it does is it stops them laying down sleeping policemen in the roads, which are always hideous.
And Tom, Adrian makes a good point there about safety, doesn't he?
Look, this policy is sensible in certain areas. Outside schools, we've always supported, the introduction of a 20 mile an hour speed limit, for example. The reason the public haven't taken to this at all in Wales, and there's been the outcry that you've seen, is that there's been no consultation with communities. It's one of those decisions taken by Cardiff Bay and implemented across the whole country, whether it makes sense in those communities or not. My view is local people, local communities and local councils know their communities best, and they should have the flexibility in most cases to be able to decide, where those 20 mile an hour limits are most appropriate, and you can make those gains without alienating the public.
Well, look, gents, you pretty much agree with each other on that, which is nice, and we'll see what our viewers make of all of that. Before I let you go, Adrian, I've got to say to you, what is your secret? Because it's been a while since I've seen you on telly. I mean, I'm old enough to be a fan of That's Life back in the day.
Bless you.
Apart from the fact that you've got a bit grey in the facial area, you don't look much different.
Do you know something? This is really weird. My wife and I are restaurateurs now, and I still do a little bit of media. But an agent came in the other day and said, come to my office, I'll get you some work. I've had 3 jobs because I'm now no longer the juvenile lead. I am that old greying granddad figure. So that's life.
Well, that's life indeed. You've still got it. Good to see you both this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, both of you. Oh, you've made him blush.
Well, do you know what? If you're old enough to remember, I mean, That's Life was an institution back then. Of course, Esther Ranson was in the big seat, and then we had Adrian. There was a Gavin in there somewhere. It was a great show. They don't make telly like that anymore. Really,
well, you had your reunion.
Show. It's lovely to see him.
Yeah.
He hasn't really aged, has he? He looks great. I don't know how old he is. But he looks great. 50 years it's been going.
Oh.
Thereabouts, maybe even longer. 52.
Where is he? Show me on the...
Oh, on that picture there. Look.
Oh, there he is.
Looking very young.
Yeah, it does look very young there.
So there you go.
50 years since it first appeared on TV.
That's the word. Well, I don't know if he was in the first season of it, but the show was going 50 years. So there you go. Brilliant stuff. Anyway, that's taking me back down memory lane.
It's taking you right back.
Yes, yeah.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, we're going to have Aidan McGee with all your sport.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Before we go through all the sport with Aidan, I just want to mention Mark Cooper, who's emailed in, said, well, not emailed in, he's gone on gbnews.com/yoursay and said, can you wish my wife Tina Cooper and stepson Daniel Johnson good luck for today's marathon? We're all very proud of the dedication and training you've put in. Can't wait to see you at Canary Wharf with jelly babies and a well-deserved hug. All my love, Mark.
Oh, that's lovely.
What a nice man you are, Mark Cooper.
You are. Lovely man. And best of luck to Tina and Daniel with your run today and everybody else who's taking part in the London Marathon.
Have you ever done it, Aidan?
No, I haven't. I mean, I remember when I worked at the Express, I worked in what was known as the Grey Bianca, which was the big building on Blackfriars Bridge.
Oh, yeah,
so
I
we'd
know
see them
one.
coming through. I mean, I think there was one afternoon we spotted four big birds.
4 big birds?
Yeah. Each one, we were ranking each big bird from 1 to 4. Some of the costumes were better than others, I have to say.
Oh, one's in costume.
Yeah, and then you could broaden it out and just do Sesame Street characters. Still Bert and Ernie, I think, were in there one time.
Oh, well, yeah, well, they did.
And the biggest Muppet was me watching.
Well... Glad you said it. All right, let's have a look at Arsenal back at the top of the Premier League.
Yes, we talked last week, didn't we, at length about the three-way fight at the top of the Premier League, and this, Ellie, just shows, it crystallises just how your deck of cards can just crumble in a matter of days. So Arsenal go close towards the Champions League 2 years ago. They go close in the Premier League race last year. They spent £100 million in the summer on one player, Declan Rice. They are going swimmingly, particularly since Christmas. They're in the Champions League. Then suddenly they go to Germany in the week and they lose the semi-final. 3 days before that, they lost at home to Aston Villa. Suddenly the Premier League race is not in their favour anymore. City are in the ascendancy. They're out of the Champions League. So the pressure is on. So they go to Wolves yesterday. Wolves had some serious injuries. We know yesterday they were going to name a 15-year-old on the bench, which they did. He didn't get on. He may as well have stayed in science. It is a bit of a shame. It is a bit. Yeah, all that fun he could have had on Friday with the Bunsen burners, eh? And the periodic table. You know they get a reaction. So we saw Arsenal go there yesterday and win 2-0, and they were absolutely outstanding. You could say that they're up against a weakened side, but it's given Manchester City something to think about when they're in action against Brighton next time around. And so that was a good day for them, because look, it's so easy for us to say, make assumptions based on these teams winning all their games. But last week we thought Liverpool were going to beat Crystal Palace, didn't we? They didn't. They lost at home 1-0. We saw Arsenal at home, of course, lose against Aston Villa. All these teams have got tricky games to come. I don't think City look so good compared to last year that we can guarantee they're going to win all their remaining games. They've got the squad to do it, but whether they do it is a completely different matter. This time, Liverpool and Arsenal are breathing down their necks strongly.
Should we look at some other matches from yesterday?
Yeah, why not? Look, at the bottom of the table, it was very interesting as well. Burnley, we've been criticising them all season. They won't change their style of play. Vincent Kompany, the manager, the former Manchester City defender, the captain, Belgian international, fantastic player. I went to see him myself a few years ago when he was over in Brussels opening up an academy. Really good guy to spend time with. He sticks to his principles. He's been criticised all season because they've not been getting the results. They go to Sheffield United yesterday, one of their rivals. They win 4-1. Suddenly, Stephen, they're within 3 points of safety. Big game today. Everton against Nottingham Forest, two clubs who have been subject to points deductions this season. 1:30 kick-off. Burnley will be watching that with their eyes glued to the TV set because they're looking for one of those two to slip up. If they do slip up, it's game on, although unfortunately Luton lost yesterday at home to Brentford. So we're getting excitement at the top of the table, we're getting excitement going for the Champions League, we're getting excitement at the bottom of the table, and that is exactly what we want as we go into the final month of the season. That's all. Look, lots of people don't support teams specifically, they just like the sport, they just like football, and they like to watch it from a neutral, observatory point of view. They want to see competition. We've got that in all areas of the table this year, and it's extremely exciting.
Yeah, Simon Egan's been in touch. Likes you.
Does he?
Yeah, good chemistry joke, he says. Straight over, Stephen said. Not straight over my head. No, I'm just trying my best to ignore him, Simon, because they come out thick and fast. So I was just ignoring the bad jokes.
Not encouraging him.
No. If you encourage him, we'll never, ever stop. Aidan, we're out of time.
Oh, no. No more gags.
No more gags. I'm sure you'll come up with something.
Yeah, don't worry. We've got an hour.
Aidan, thanks very much indeed.
And Clive says, have you ever considered the marathon, Stephen or Ellie?
No.
No.
Anyway, coming up, we're going to take the papers with Emma Wolf and Andy Jones.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 p.m.
So, J. Cole, who is a rapper, says he felt terrible after releasing a song aimed at fellow rapper Kendrick Lamar and vowed to pull the track off streaming services. He said, "I ain't gonna lie to y'all. The past 2 days felt terrible," he told an audience at the Dreamville Festival in North Carolina. "I damn near had a relapse," he said.
There's a lot of young people, especially, that would look at that and they will take it not just as entertainment.
It doesn't happen in any other form of art that I can think of. This is not happening in country music, is it?
Well, it's the same problem in both cases, isn't it? Who's doing the regulating? And surely it's each case on its merits, isn't it? You don't just ban a genre.
Why is there such a lot of hatred for a man who usually would have trash-talked back to stand up and say, you know, this doesn't sit well with me and I love this guy. If we look at, I think his name was Cody Fisher, the semi-professional footballer who died in a club because someone stabbed him. Now, he was stabbed because he stepped on someone's trainers. This is the level of ego we're seeing from a lot of young men who don't have any output of being able to channel that energy, and a lot of it is stemming from cultures like football, hip-hop, these sorts of things. So I'm just saying it's refreshing to see a man who could have easily wiped the floor with his lyrics say, I don't have to, you know?
That is interesting, isn't it? Because I took this interview in the wrong direction. It's not about pointing out the areas of concern. Actually, this story is saying, look, music and art can be giving you an example of how to live a slightly better life.
That's free speech. Saying, sorry, I'm sorry, I choose not to fight back because I love you. It may look like a wimpy thing to do, but it's still free speech.
You know what? I love you, Paul. Sorry about earlier.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Right, 7:42. Let's have a quick skim through the newspapers this morning.
And the Sunday Telegraph leads with Suella Braverman leading calls for the head of the Metropolitan Police to quit after the force threatened to arrest an openly Jewish man during a pro-Palestinian rally.
Sunday Express has migrant flights apparently ready to take off, and illegal migrants preparing to learn if they've got a place on board the first deportation flight to Rwanda.
The Observer leads with Labour waging a new campaign to win over Tory-supporting pensioners in an attempt to neutralise one of the government's last remaining electoral strengths.
Mail on Sunday has Angela Rayner being dealt another blow in her Two Homes scandal. The emergence, apparently, of a document, they're calling a key document, signed by her former neighbour.
And the Sunday People leads with Just Stop Oil planning to halt flights this summer by storming airports across the UK and Europe in a plan that could cause misery to thousands of holidaymakers.
Let's talk to Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones, who join us this morning. Emma, let's start with the Sunday Times, should we? What is this incredible story about haemophiliac children?
Well, I'm glad that you say that, because I feel like I should have known about this many, years ago. It has been rumbling on for decades, this infected blood scandal. And lots of us, I think, have vaguely heard of it, but I think it's a bit like the post office scandal. It was never big enough, it was never sexy enough, it was never headliney enough. But it's actually horrifying. So their headline is End This Bloody Disgrace. They've got a campaign calling for justice to be done for the victims. Now, in the 1970s and 1980s, many people, haemophiliac children, and haemophilia is the condition where your blood doesn't clot, haemophiliac children were used by doctors for reckless medical experiments. They were basically used as guinea pigs in trials they had blood samples which were sent from America from blood donors that were paid blood donors, often alcoholics, prisoners, drug users, and they were experimented on. These children were experimented on. They were given blood that was infected with deadly diseases, HIV, amongst others, hepatitis C. It's kind of astonishing to think of now. It's being called, I think, the deadliest man-made disaster in post-war British history. Over 3,000 people died. Many more are living with the condition, with conditions. I mean, on the front of the Sunday Times, there's this little boy, Colin Smith, who died in 1983, aged 7 years old. Other people who died in their 40s, others who died in their 20s.
It's a direct result of what happened to it.
A direct result of AIDS, a direct result of HIV, of hepatitis C, these deadly, deadly diseases.
This child...
The parents had no knowledge or consent. Can
you imagine taking your newborn child, imagine finding your child, as the family of Colin Smith found out in the 80s, taking him to hospital, finding out he's a haemophiliac, giving him to doctors, and doctors saying, oh, we're going to treat him, he's going to be absolutely fine. And then 7 years later, in 1990, I think he died of AIDS. I mean, especially in that era...
He died weighing the weight of a 4-month-old baby. He was skin and bone.
But in a case like that, are we saying these people were deliberately infected?
Yes.
Well, but why not? Like in 1983, people didn't know what HIV/AIDS was, but it was like really new and emerging.
It was infected blood. I'm not saying that the doctors were trying to kill them, but they knew that they were getting blood samples that were paid for, that they knew were infected with various things. They were being used as human trials. Yes.
Good.
Often they were told, oh, transfer to this hospital, we're going to try this new treatment, and they weren't told. It's absolutely appalling. And actually, Stephen, if you think about the ramifications of it, there are people still live, and none of them have received compensation. No. And that's what the campaign is calling for, a full apology, because there's a public inquiry reporting this week. Full apology, compensation for the victims, and support for the ongoing sufferers. Yeah. Think about how people sleep with other people. Think about relationships and lovers and partners who may actually be living with these conditions, and it's still not known.
And those bereaved families as well, who were left behind.
I mean, there isn't enough money in the world.
No.
That's a problem to compensate.
And, of course, like the post office scandal, no government wants to... I mean, now, Boris Johnson, Sadiq Khan, Andy Burnham, a whole load of people are getting behind it. And they were all in power, and they all could have done something. Boris Johnson could have done something about it. And they're all getting behind this campaign now, which is great, and saying, yes, pay compensation.
It's a scandal.
I think there's 100-odd MPs that are going to sign this motion. But again, you talk about 180 again. But we're in this position where we knew about the post office years ago. We knew about this blood scandal years ago. Grenfell, we're in a similar situation where it's just endlessly kicked into the long grass. Yeah. There's no resolution. There's appeal after appeal. There's report after report. We have all of the information, and yet we don't have any... There's no resolution for any of these desperate situations.
Well, maybe we need something like an ITV drama, like we saw with the post office scandal, to kind of push it into the public consciousness.
Or front page of the Sunday Times. But it makes me sad that, I mean, we have heard it has been raised in Parliament, the infected blood scandal, like the Horizon scandal. It has been raised in Parliament, but it's never...
the infected blood scandal was never... It was never framed in this way. It was... We didn't see it in this particular light, did we? We saw it as you know, people receiving, you know, Factor 8, whatever it's called, that coincidentally happened to be infected.
Yeah, I think it's like the ITV drama. Until it's on the front page of the Sunday Times, no one really...
Gets the detail.
Gets the detail of it,
Awful. Andy, let's take a look at the Times Magazine, shall we, this morning? Tony Blair.
Yeah, Tony Blair, someone else who hasn't done anything about the infected blood scandal while he's in his years of office. There's a big puff piece with Tony Blair, glossy interview in the Times Magazine, and he reinvented himself as a secret global influencer. And Tony Blair Institute staff has 800 people, and they're running things in 40 different countries, and they get $140 million in revenue. Well, it's basically a look into Tony Blair's life, and he says that the only people in politics now are the weird and the wealthy, which I suppose has some seed of truth. The one thing that I liked and I agreed with in this interview, and I know people have got very strong opinions of Blair, and I think we can agree whether you're from a left or right-wing perspective, he says people are too pessimistic in politics about what can be achieved. There's too many in politics who simply want to be in the position and they've got no interest in positive change. They're either not interested in positive change or they basically say, oh, well, what can we do? Our hands are tied. And there isn't a significant plan. There isn't a thread running through government, whether it's whichever government we're talking about, running through government where it says, we've got a plan, let's get behind this.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know whether they're pessimistic. I wonder whether do we have enough really intelligent, principled, conviction politicians who really care about changing the world. I mean,
is a plan,
don't mind them being wealthy if they have a plan and they really want to make things happen. They want to make people's lives better. But I think lots of us now feel that many politicians are in it, sort of time-serving. They want to be an MP. It's got a certain cachet to it still. That they don't really care, and that they're very out of touch with what's going on in our country, which is poverty and waiting lists.
But it's interesting to get his perspective in that. I mean, you know, not a popular figure now, but at the time in '97. He was someone who seemed to be what the country needed.
He had record popularity, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was hugely popular and he was young and dynamic and you know, very different to what the Tories were offering. And it was that refreshing change and the country really felt like it needed a change and it got one.
Cool Britannia. It was an exciting time.
It was an exciting time. But people look back at it now and go, well, it all went pear-shaped. But it always does. This is the thing. But that's the argument with what's happening now with the Tories. You know, it's...
They're just tired and exhausted and worn out and...
It's what happens.
Devoid of ideas.
Yeah. Interesting. Can we have a look at... I want to find... oh, yes, here we go. Emma.
Yeah.
Victoria Beckham.
Two important things, Victoria Beckham turns 50 on Wednesday. Posh Spice is 50, and she had a big party. So that's something to talk about.
Yeah, in fact...
Massive party.
We've got a clip.
Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
I can't believe they danced a bit of, So all the Spice Girls were there, which is really fun. Jerry apparently turned up quite late without her hubby. That's not...
He was away on business for his Formula One
just
stuff.
Just being factual, he wasn't there. Just saying, as they say. Anyway, she turned up, and all the Spice Girls turned up. She was really chuffed about that. Tom Cruise was there, Eva Longoria was there, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley was there, Jason Statham, obviously, Guy Ritchie was there. Who else do you need? Tom Cruise.
And that clip was David Beckham and the other Spice Girls doing a bit of Stop Right Now.
Was it?
Stop, I believe so. It's quite dark. They paid for a lot of glamour.
Music gave that away.
Yeah,
I
think they paid for a lot of glamorous stuff, but no lighting, so I couldn't really see what was going on. But we think it was Beck's.
It was at Oswald's in Mayfair.
Very swanky.
It sounds very swank.
Posh?
They had
very posh.
I'm sure it is. They had pre-drinks at the Beckham's mansion beforehand. I love all the details. And earlier in the week, I think on the birthday itself, David had flown all the family out to the south of France for a private dinner.
So he flew to the south of France for dinner?
Just for a dinner. I mean, they often fly off to the West Coast just for a
to be
party.
fair, I've not known any of them bleat on about global warming so much. At least not being critical.
At least they don't do that. Posh was still on her crutches. She's broken her foot. She managed to replace...
That's age for you.
Swap her moon boot. Yeah, exactly. Swap her moon boot for stilettos. I mean, please,
really?
Stilettos with a broken foot? Ow.
That's a workout.
That's a workout. She was wearing a beautiful gown from her collection. Harper, her daughter, was wearing a beautiful gown from Mummy's collection.
Right.
There you go.
It was a walking advert.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well, at least they've had a nice time.
Yeah, it sounds like it went well. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that she's 50.
Well, she looks great, doesn't she?
Yeah, she looks amazing.
She has the same birth year as you.
Yes, she does. Nothing wrong with being in 1974, baby.
Very nice.
That's what I
And you
say.
both look great.
Yes, I just wish I was as rich as...
Oh, well, would you like to have flown to the south of France for dinner? That would be nice. So would you bring me?
I don't know. I'd find that a bit full on. I mean, you kind of want to go home after dinner, don't you?
Oh,
I suppose they stayed over in some beautiful hotel.
Well, you could sleep on your private jet.
On your private jet, private yacht.
EasyJet, did they?
Yeah, and they've probably got houses down there, or friends. Well, Elton John's down there. He's down in near Nice.
Is he?
He's on the Riviera. Yeah, absolutely. I'm
and
sure.
And Joan Collins is in that neck of the woods as well.
They weren't getting the last bus home. Put it that way.
No.
Yeah. Should we have a quick look at the Daily Mail, Andy? Apparently, if you smile, you could get a discount.
Oh. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Apparently, happiness is so infectious that it makes sellers at the till drop their prices. And you might say this is an absolute nonsense, but I had a New Year's resolution that I've managed to keep up for many years, which is whenever I have good service in a place, I will take the person's name and then email their head office and then pass the praise on. And the amount of... one, it's really nice for them and it's really good. And to the amount of free vouchers, free things I get sent. Whenever I go into a very popular brand of coffee... Yeah. Whenever I go to a very popular coffee chain, and they have a name badge, and I say, oh, Stephen, that was great, thank you so much. Oh, brewed great coffee. They very often, next time, they'll give me a free coffee. The amount of free stuff you get just by using somebody's name, saying, thanks so much for the service, really great, or how are you, hope you're having a good day. loads of stuff. Or I go, oh,
Smarmy devil.
the other one I do is, if someone's really rude to me in front of the queue, I'll go, wasn't that person really rude? You were just doing your job. Discount, free stuff. Would you like a free one of these?
Oh, you've got it all worked out.
Wow.
We need to give it a go.
Well, it's just by being nice.
No, but I always, not a New Year's resolution, but I always make the effort to talk to the cleaners, waitresses, whoever. Everyone's doing their job. We're all just doing our job.
Nice.
Makes us all happier.
It's nice to be nice. Let's see if the weather's nice. Here's Ellie.
Thank you very much, you two.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across the North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and explore Greece like never before. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The People's
Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on Sunday, the 21st of April. Today, Suella Braverman leading calls for the Metropolitan Police Chief to quit over what she brands a litany of failures during recent pro-Palestine marches.
Labour have vowed to crack down on yobbish behaviour. Shock new figures show 20 million Brits suffered at the hands of troublemakers.
After months of deadlock, US Congress have united to approve the £49 billion in foreign aid for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan.
It's a national pastime, cultural icon and a very popular drink, tea. Today we'll be celebrating National Tea Day.
Good morning. Manchester City reached the FA Cup final for the second successive year, with rivals United looking to join them this afternoon. But City boss Pep Guardiola blasted his players' unacceptable schedule. We'll hear about the snooker world champion who spent half his £500,000 prize money on a red Ferrari, and we're underway in a Chinese Grand Prix.
There's still some sunshine on offer for many of us today, but some rain arriving in the north later. Join me for the full forecast with all the details.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Loads of you getting in touch about the marathon today. Sheila says, please say hello to my son and his 6 friends who are running the marathon today dressed as emus.
Oh, wow.
So a flock of 7 yellow emus. If you see them today, you know they're all belong to Sheila. So there you go.
That's going to be a real sight, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I did get a message from Christopher Hope. Because if you watched that interview earlier, you might have seen their family dog, Queenie, making an appearance in the background of that interview. Did just speak to Chris, and I just said, is Queenie going along to support you today? Because Chris is running alongside his 2 children. He says, I think Queenie is a bit old. She's 18 years old, so she's going to be supporting the family from the sofa today.
Yes, quite right too.
Quite right too.
Quite right too. John Andrews said this morning was going very well until you mentioned Tony Blair.
Yes, lots of you not very happy about us mentioning Tony
It's
Blair.
one of the things, but whether you like former politicians or not, you've got to look about what they did that was good and what they did that wasn't good. Look at it in the whole. So at the time, 97, he was a breath of fresh air. What do you think he was, 10 years later is another question.
And those videos that were just running of 1997, when Tony Blair and his wife Sherry were going into the door of number 10, genuine excitement there. People waving their flags. You can sense it.
Yeah. It was. I mean, the national mood was good. Was very good at the time. 97. Yeah. It was. But it's. There you go. It's all changed now, hasn't it? Everything changes. Right. Let's have a look at the Home Secretary, former Home Secretary, I should say, and wannabe Prime Minister, I think it's fair to say, Suella Braverman, leading calls today for the Metropolitan Police Chief, Mark Rowley, to quit over what she describes as a litany of failures in policing pro-Palestinian marches.
Well, the latest scandal embroiling the Met is the force's reaction after an officer used the term openly Jewish to describe an anti-Semitism activist.
Yeah, Gideon Falter was stopped from crossing a road near his synagogue as a march was going by. The officer said he wanted to stop him for his own safety because he was quite openly Jewish.
Well, the force has since apologised twice. Well, let's speak now with GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Good morning to you, Catherine. And it's just going from bad to worse for the Metropolitan Police, isn't it?
It really is. And the Metropolitan Police Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, issued yet another apology. I think that's 3 now last night. Said, I personally reiterate our apology, but went on to say our officers will continue to police with courage, empathy and impartiality. I think that last word, impartiality, is what's critical here, because there's a lot of accusations that that is not happening. So we've had former Home Secretary Suella Braverman has come out today saying she feels the Met Police boss needs to quit. The Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, has said that it's hard to think of any other minority that would be treated as disrespectfully as Jews seem to be. The chap that was involved in this incident, Gideon Falter, he's the head of the campaign against anti-Semitism. He's written in the Sunday Times today, also saying that he thinks the Met Police boss needs to go. And the Met Police boss has been summoned to see the policing minister this week, so this row is not going away at all.
In effect, is this a government issue, though, or is this down to Sadiq Khan?
Well,
because
yes.
Sadiq Khan could sack him, couldn't he?
The Home Secretary and Sadiq Khan could. I have to say, I think that is unlikely. And in fairness to the police, it's clear that this has been very, very badly handled. But the argument that the police would make, and indeed made later to this chap in another video clip, is they said, there's so many protesters and there's not very many of us. The problem is that if you are attacked, they don't feel that they could keep him safe. And this is the issue, because week after week, tens of thousands of pro-Palestine protesters, yes, it's heavily policed, but still, they are just trying to avoid trouble. And of course, what that means is that very often they will say to people, well, you know, just go away, even though it means that people can't freely walk. Jewish people increasingly feel that they can't freely walk in London on the days of these protests. And I personally, I'm not Jewish, but I've reported on a lot of these. The last time I was there 3 weeks ago, we'd just gone on air. People start shouting on a megaphone because they hate the channel. Afterwards, we went around the corner with police officers and they basically said to us, you need to go home for your own safety. There was no, it's OK, you can carry on, we'll stand round you, we'll protect you. It was, you need to go home for your own safety. So we couldn't do our job anymore.
Which just beggars belief, actually, as to what is going on. It's interesting, just as you were talking, Dave got in touch and said Mark Rowley makes Cressida Dick look competent and effective, which takes some doing. You do wonder if he just... I mean, there was all this great hope that he was going to come in and start to change things and reform things. Just doesn't seem to have happened.
It doesn't, and the Metropolitan Police should be a beacon of how policing should be for the rest of the country, whereas it seems to be in more trouble than any other force, because the pro-Palestine marches, there's been huge amounts of controversy about this, but of course, going back, we've had not just one or two bad apples, but hundreds of bad apples, sex scandals, you know, rapes, murders, etc. And there's clearly root and branch overhaul needed. But you know, this is another aspect of the problems that the Metropolitan Police seem to be having.
Because it's not just the policing, and you've outlined the challenges that the police have had every Saturday for several months now, but it's also then the handling of when they do get themselves into hot water, because it's been the handling of this that's almost made it worse.
Yes, exactly.
And it doesn't seem to be going away.
Exactly, because the first, I can't really call it an apology, but their first attempt to dig themselves out of the hole was they basically said, we've seen a trend of people going alongside these protests, filming themselves, because, of course, this chap was obviously filmed and it's gone mad on social media. They must understand that doing that is provoking. And that is putting the blame on the Jewish gentleman who ought to be allowed. So, you know, it's no wonder that Robin Simcox, you know, an advisor to the government, said weeks ago, London is becoming a no-go area for Jews on the day of these marches. I would say yesterday I was at a pro-Israel march, stationary protest in central London. There were dozens of people from the Jewish community singing, waving banners, waving flags. There was a small pro-Palestine protest on the other side of the road. The Jewish community, the songs, it was very upbeat, totally outnumbered the pro-Palestinian lot. But that is very rare, because week after week, tens of thousands of people on the streets of London and elsewhere through the UK. And the Socialist Worker prints placards saying "From the river to the sea, Palestine
Does it really?
shall be free," which is very anti-Semitic to many people.
Yes.
And you can just go and help yourself. And there's dozens, hundreds of these placards because, you know, they're printed en masse. And the police don't act on that. But, you know, where do you draw the line between freedom of speech, freedom of you know,
well, yeah.
very difficult.
Interestingly, and thanks, Catherine, Christopher Dial's been in touch. Because one of the big issues here is about the safety of Gideon Falter. And was the police officer just saying, as some of you have suggested, well, he's just looking out for his safety. Christopher says, if the policeman was concerned over Gideon Falter's safety, then he should have escorted him across the road if that's where he wanted to go. Actually, I think that's a really valid point.
Yeah.
Rather than just say you need to get out of here, you should have said, well, you know, it should have protected him.
But then interesting, I did see a view yesterday, which I won't be able to dig out now, but it's essentially saying, does Gideon Falter expect for the police officer to break rank and to personally escort him across the road in that set of circumstances, potentially putting both of them in danger? So I don't know, there's two sides to that, isn't there?
Well, there is.
Do keep those views coming in.
Yeah.
gbnews.com/. Loads coming in.
Loads of you getting in touch on that one. The US House of Representatives has finally approved that $61 billion aid package for Ukraine.
Yes, Democrats and Republicans joined together after months of deadlock over renewed American support to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion. This was after some objected to sending money overseas instead of to the US-Mexico border.
Well, Ukrainian President Zelensky said he was grateful for the decision, which he said keeps history on the right track.
Meanwhile, Moscow says the passage of the bill would further ruin Ukraine and result in more deaths.
Earlier, we spoke to the chair of Republican Overseas UK, Greg Swenson.
The general consensus is that this is great news. Wish it happened earlier.
Why was it being blocked?
I think it was being blocked for good reason. Many Republicans wanted to tie this to the border. And contrary to popular belief where, you know, the argument was we need more money for the border, it wasn't actually money. And in the initial proposals had more funding for the border. From the Democrats, that's not the point. They could flip the switch and shut down the border to a certain degree. So it wasn't as much the money going out the door. It's that the Biden administration decided to open the border when he took over in early 21. So if they had this could have happened, this funding could have happened 2 months ago if Biden had agreed to shut down the border like it was closed during the Trump administration.
And yet, how does it fit within, I mean, I don't know what your personal view is, but for a lot of Republicans who say we are fed up of being the world's policeman.
Yeah, there is that element of the party. There's an isolationist wing in the Republican Party. It's relatively small. You saw that the majority of Republicans, the great majority of Republicans, voted for all of the funding yesterday. It is this fringe kind of extreme element. It's not necessarily conservative. You know, sometimes you read, oh, the conservative wing of the party. That's not the case. The conservative movement is very pro-defense. You know, we endorse military spending. We endorse defense spending. Biden has cut the budget in real terms by 2% for the last 2 years. That's dangerous at a time like this. So, yes, there is this fringe wing, and those are the ones that will probably or possibly file a motion to vacate on Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who really pushed this aid bill through.
I mean, we've just heard from Zelensky there, who says he's very grateful. What do you think this means for Ukraine, and what message does it send to Putin?
Well, it definitely sends a message that the U.S. is willing to support the defense of Ukraine, and this is a good thing. And you know, even this is very Reagan-esque in many ways, where, you know, the Reagan administration was very much behind our allies, behind democracies fighting for their freedom. You had proxy wars going on at that time in Nicaragua, for example. And so this is a way for the U.S. to get ahead of it, right? We'd rather help Ukraine defend itself now than have a bigger problem later. It's actually cost-effective in many ways.
And of course, that also includes, I mean, there's more money going to Israel as a result of this. There's also money going to Taiwan.
That's right. That's right. And then the last element is is forcing TikTok to be sold to an American owner.
Yes.
And that was another priority, but, you know, and that was bipartisan in many ways.
So tell us a bit more about this TikTok
Sure.
part of what was going on yesterday.
Yes, there is that threat that TikTok, you know, being owned by the Chinese, tied to the Chinese to the CCP as well as the PRC. They you know, there's an argument that is data and potential influence peddling that we just can't live with. And, you know, it's similar to restrictions on media ownership or television ownership by foreign owners. And so this was important to, again, it was for the most part bipartisan, and it's a great security risk to have the Chinese owning that kind of data.
It's 15 minutes past 8. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning.
And thousands of people have protested throughout the Canary Islands, calling for a limit on tourist arrivals. Demonstrators are calling for a limit on tourist numbers and curbs on development, which they call harmful for residents and the environment. Currently, tourism makes up 35% of the Canaries' economy, with 13.9 million tourists visiting in 2023, about 6 times more than the island's population of 2.2 million.
As we just heard there from Greg Swenson, TikTok is one step closer to being banned in the United States following a vote in the US Congress. It could be banned unless the social media app's Chinese owner sells its stake in the business. The FBI has warned that the owner could share user data like browsing history and biometric information.
And a record number of people will take part in the London Marathon today. More than 50,000 people will race through the capital, raising money for charity. And the race kicks off at 10 a.m.
But is it going to rain on them?
Well, that's the question.
They wouldn't want it too hot.
No, they wouldn't mind a bit of rain.
No, it might not be a bad
thing.
thing.
I think you want a cloudy, mild day.
Do you?
I think that's what you want.
All right.
Not that I've ever run a marathon, not that I ever want to.
No, but
neither do you.
We're obviously experts in it. Let's see what Ellie Glazer's got for us all today.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across the North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, some good news this morning. There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a Greek cruise worth £10,000, travel goodies and a £10,000 tax-free cash bank balance boost. Yes, here's all the details you need.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Lots of emails in saying they love your outfit in burnt orange today.
Thanks. Thanks so much. And you've blended with
I've tried to
teal
blend.
and burnt orange.
Yes.
It's a good match, actually.
Try very, very hard.
Yeah.
Did you know yesterday, I'm across the dates, I forgot to mention it yesterday. Yesterday was 32 years since the Freddie Mercury tribute concert at Wembley.
Really?
32 years. That's a long time.
Wow.
But you see, I've crossed the dates because then today I've realised it's my Auntie Brenda, it's her wedding anniversary, and I forgot to send a card.
Happy wedding anniversary, Auntie Brenda. There you go.
Yeah.
I've fixed it for you.
Thank you. I forgot the card. Can you believe it?
Who's she married to?
Uncle Mike.
Happy wedding anniversary, Auntie Brenda and Uncle Mike.
There you go.
There you go. You're sorted.
I don't know if they're watching.
Let them know.
Yeah, let them know.
And
Anyway,
that will get you back in the good books.
well, fingers crossed. Otherwise, there'll be a whole heap of trouble next time we have a family dinner.
Well, yes.
Can you
But I think you've
imagine?
redeemed yourself now, so it's fine.
All right, don't go anywhere. We've got lots more coming up for you in just a moment.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Offline and overlooked. That's what Age UK say millions of British pensioners are. Why? Because they cannot or won't access the internet. It's leading to digital exclusion. So the charity's campaigning for public services like banks, utilities and even the NHS to maintain a more human approach.
Everything's online. People assume you've got a smartphone with a mobile number and an email, and without that you don't exist in this world anymore. We've got to try and get the government to see that it's so important to make people feel that they belong, because there's a feeling that the older generation just feel that they're forgotten, they're in the way, and we already know that anyway, but it's just another reason for them to feel that they're not wanted. They'll just accept it and they'll say, well, that's it, I can't do it anymore. And that's it, whereas other people would be really kicking and screaming. So we need to be the voice for older people.
Despite digital technology playing an increasing role in our lives, around 1 in 5 over 65s in the UK don't use the internet. Thornycroft Centre in Pontefract, West Yorkshire provides a space for this age group to socialise and get help to go online.
I'm not that good with mobiles, so when you mention anything about online, I ain't a clue what you're talking about.
The closure of thousands of banks is also detrimental to the older generation.
A lot of our members what come, they tend to use cash. They don't like to use bank cards. I think a lot of it's trust or the lack of knowledge. They don't understand how it works. I think they're very vulnerable as well with online. It's really important that they're aware how to use it and how to use it safely.
So, in an online era, it's still crucial for many to have an offline option.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers. It's National Tea Day today.
Get yours, come on.
Sorry. I'm not joining in the spirit of it.
No, he's not. We'll get him in the mood. Here you go. Cheers.
Cheers. I don't know why we have national tea. I mean, I drink tea all the time.
So do I.
Do we need to mark?
We have tea on the go all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
Do we need to mark it? I'm not sure, because we are a nation of tea lovers. It's estimated we consume 100 million cups daily, and that's just us. That's just us two in the studio. That's according to the UK Tea and Infusion Association.
So it's going to be apparently celebrated across the country through special events and a tea festival.
Yes, Tea-Val, yeah.
Being celebrated in London. It also coincides with Queen Elizabeth's birthday, and she enjoyed, apparently, a cup of Earl Grey with a splash of milk and no sugar.
And who else enjoys
I
Earl
like
Grey?
that. That's how I like my tea.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've always had a regal touch about you. And I'll tell you who else does as well, as the managing director of Tregothnan Tea, the first tea to be grown in the UK, Jonathan Jones. Good to see you, Jonathan. Oh, and you've even got your tea in a GB News mug.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Cheers to you. And where are you this morning?
At Tregothnan, which is hosting the UK's largest garden opening for charity. So people are coming here today to look at the first tea grown in England. We really love tea. I agree with Stephen. Every day is National Tea Day in this country.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind living there. Looks absolutely gorgeous. Tell us about Tregothnan, because I have to say, we've got a cup of it here. It's very nice.
Lovely, yeah.
I had no idea, though, that we could grow tea in the UK.
A lot of people don't, but I came on with Ellie a few weeks ago, and we talked about tea growing in England and putting the Englishness into English tea. And we're a nation of gardeners and a nation of tea drinkers. So Tregothnan thought, why not bring those two things together? And camellia is what tea is. So the first outdoor camellias grew here 200 years ago. And there's only about 150 acres in the UK, just behind Tregothnan here, which have got this valley down by the water. It's very misty and sheltered, 6 miles inland from the sea. And there is the perfect Himalayan conditions for really high quality tea. You can't produce enough to compete with Kenya and the huge tea producing countries, but it's fantastic tea. And I think today your audience, GB News audience, should come and collect one of these on the house, because your audience, I think, is the biggest tea drinking lot, and they're really welcome to support the charity here today. There's 3 charities, and help make this not just the UK's largest garden opening for charity, but maybe the world's largest garden opening for charity.
Oh,
well, I'll tell you what,
go.
Our lot will do anything for a free tea bag, Jonathan. That's fair. That's fair enough.
So there's your invitation. If you're down in the southwest, get yourself down to Tregothnan, and you can get yourselves one of these lovely tea bags. We've got a few in the studio here, Jonathan, because it is part of our British culture, isn't it? It is a huge part of our British heritage to enjoy a good cup of tea.
It's the national drink, and I do a weekly tea column for Country Life magazine, and actually think about it, tea and cake is the world's first and ultimate pairing, I would argue. So behind me today, there'll probably be 10,000 cups of tea served, and goodness knows how many slices of cake. We get volunteers making cakes all night, and tea and cake it's like peak civilization. In fact, from about lunchtime today, there's a Chinese television crew coming to film what they see as an English tea ceremony, which is basically us stuffing our faces with tea and cake.
Wow. Tell you what, I hope you give them a slice. Why is it that we adopted it though? 'Cause, I mean, obviously it's not traditionally ours. It's not natively ours, is it? It was brought over way back when.
No, you're right, Stephen. So the Brits basically copied and took in the Chinese national drink about 400 years ago. It was made popular through royalty, and then it became more and more available. And the British became master tea blenders. We were the home of the world tea trade. So we were like Thomas Lipton, of Lipton's fame. He became the world's first blender. And by the way, it's the whiskey industry which then copied the tea industry. So people say, oh, well, you know, everyone's blending and talking about the finest teas. It must have learned that from whiskey. It's actually the other way around. And then all the trade came through London, and then we kind of lost our way a bit in the last 50 years because tea got a bit cheaper and less respected. Tea bags came along, and there's nothing wrong with tea bags, but you know, we've forgotten actually that there's a range of teas out there. We can give coffee a run for its money. In fact, still today, there's more tea consumed in the world than coffee by a long way.
Oh, I should think so. Oh, well, it's how do you drink it, though? I was quite...
that was my question.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Because I was quite intrigued when we said in our introduction the Queen liked Earl Grey with a splash of milk. Now, that's how I drink it. I like a bit of milk in tea, generally speaking. But I would have thought the royalty would have had a squeeze of lemon or something.
We've discovered all kinds of fun things because it is such an important drink. We've had quite a few of the royals planting tea bushes here at Tregothnan, and some of the other tea gardens you can visit all year round. So the actual Tregothnan house is only, the gardens around that are only open today, but the tea plantations we try and open much more often. And we've had the royals planting tea bushes, and the Duke of Edinburgh put in a tea bush here about 8 years ago, which is now, we pick tea from a lot. And some of the royals actually like a smoky tea with their Earl Grey, which is really interesting. And we're making a special tea at the moment for Emma Bridgewater and the Duchess of Rutland. And she is a real tea connoisseur. So we're doing some special blends with smoky tea at the moment, which they call Lapsang Souchongs. But in the UK, we call them Lapsang Swansong, because you're not really supposed to call it the Chinese name. But you're right, we adopted the Chinese national drink. We've made it our national drink. And now that's exported all over the world. We sell even iced tea like this, brewed here in the UK, made with our own homegrown tea leaves. This is being sold in America this year. So, you know, we're seen all over the world as an expert nation of tea drinkers. And now, for the first time, we actually grow it here in the UK for the first time. But it's going to always be a really niche thing to, you know, produce tea in the UK is never going to become enough to feed the whole world. We sell it to GWR, who serve it in first class and that sort of thing. But the best hotels, independent delis and farm shops, that's where you'll find homegrown tea. But we're not going to be able to supply the major supermarkets.
It's nice though. We get that we're sort of doing a bit of work on our drink in that way. I have to say I like the sound of a sort of smoky tea.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
That does sound nice. I've got to ask you, because I'm just so intrigued. Is Tregothnan? Is that a private house or is it National Trust or something?
No, it's been private, and the same family have lived here since around 1300.
Wow.
And they just love collecting botanical things. It's the safe home for lots of endangered species. So it's like a botanical reserve, really. And my background's in botany, so it was an amazing opportunity to collect new things for the garden. And today is one of those really special times when you've got absolute blue sky, sun's out. There'll be thousands of people coming from all across the UK and abroad, actually. We've got lots of Germans and even Australians are booked to see the gardens today, and even pick a bit of their own tea. The Himalayan Valley is open, so if you get your skates on, Stephen, you can get down here and pick some tea this afternoon.
Well, there you go. There's your invitation.
I tell you what, could you arrange a little visit? I'd love to stay in a room down there. I'd love to stay for the weekend.
Just on the other side of the river, where the tea gardens are, there are some fantastic guest cottages.
Oh, there you go. You can stay in the guest
cottage. Why don't you come down and plant a tea bush, a GB News tea bush?
Yeah, you're on. We're on. We'll go down and we could do the show from down there.
Oh, yeah, now that's an idea.
Yeah. All right, you've talked us into
All
it,
right, Jonathan. Yeah, you pulled our leg.
Happy Tea Day. Good to see you.
Happy Tea Day. Enjoy the festivities.
Thanks.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, It looks beautiful down there.
Doesn't it just?
Oh, I love a country house.
I know you do. You like the National Trust properties. That's why you were asking.
We're always doing National Trust.
Yeah.
We've got membership. Always do it. But if that's a private, can you imagine? Every time you go to a National Trust place, you sort of go, oh, can you imagine?
Wish I lived here.
But that's a private house.
Oh, that's gorgeous. If you're in the southwest, get yourself down there.
Get a free tea bag.
Get a free tea bag.
I have to say, it's very nice tea.
It's nice, isn't it?
But it just, yeah, lovely. Well, go down there, plant a bush.
Yeah. You can stay in the guest cottage. I love how you're not allowed to stay in the main house, but you can stay across the river if you like in the guest cottage.
You can stay in the servants' quarters.
Yes.
That's right. We should do that then.
I think we should. I think let's put that in the diary. Talk to the bosses.
Do a little show down there.
We'll do an OB.
Do you fancy a tea breakfast show, a breakfast tea show?
With live guests? I see it now.
Yeah.
Do let us know how you like your tea. We should have asked Jonathan, the expert way of making tea, because it is a bit controversial, isn't it? Everyone's got their own... It's a bit subjective.
Apparently the water is not meant to be quite 100 degrees.
Oh, really?
About 98 degrees. I've seen somewhere. Don't ask me why.
And I believe wholeheartedly in a 4-minute brew.
Oh, yes. Though there are those tea bags, I'm not naming the brand, that come out now that say it brews in 60 seconds. Now, I've not tried that.
No,
but apparently it's they've got a new tea formula, so it brews in a minute.
I don't think you can rush the process.
No, I don't think you can.
Let us know your thoughts.
Sometimes, because I drink a lot of tea on the show, and sometimes I order a cup of tea, and it appears on the desk within about 45 seconds.
It's always a worry, isn't it?
Which is a concern. It's a concern. But I drink it anyway, because you can't be seen to moan.
No, you can't, because you'll get a reputation. You get a name for yourself if you do.
Yes, I would.
Let us know what you think about that. How do you like your tea in the morning? Happy tea day to you. gbnews.com/you'll say.
All right, Aidan McGee's going to have the sport for us in just a moment.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Loads of you get in touch on tea.
Oh, have they?
Yes. Top Cat has been in touch saying, "Morning, Ellie and Stephen. We're laid in bed right now with a cuppa watching you."
Oh, very nice. Very, very nice.
And Jackie says, "I make proper tea, teapot, tea leaves and a strainer. I let it brew for a few minutes and I'm enjoying it right now." It seems like everyone's drinking a cup of tea right now.
Oh, Adrian says, "I like it strong. Must be made with boiled water from a kettle, not a boiler."
Yes.
Yes.
Well, not quite.
No, but it says let it cook. See, I was right about the temperature, though, because it's got instructions on the back of this, which I hadn't seen before. It says cool to 95 degrees, then brew for 2 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, you want the full 4 minutes.
You need the full.
A splash of milk.
Well, do keep those views coming in, gbnews.com/your say. Should we look at the sport?
Oh, we better had, because he's here now. Aidan, good morning.
Good morning again.
Pep Guardiola's having a whinge. I mean, you can't blame him, to be fair.
Well, you can't, I suppose. Look, his rationale is that they had this almighty Champions League tie against Real Madrid, which went to extra time on Wednesday and penalties. And there's all the emotional fallout from that as well, because they were the better side and they should have won, but Real Madrid just did what they did, and they did what they tend to do, and they just got through. They found a way to win. And managers like Pep Guardiola are judged on the Champions League, so it's a huge psychological blow for him and the players to be eliminated from that tournament on Wednesday. They then had to play another big game against Chelsea, who are in really decent form, at Wembley yesterday. Now, his argument is that we're asking the players to do a lot. Yes, I know they earn a lot of money, but the science constantly tells us that if you overwork them and play too many games, they're at risk of injury. I was at a game yesterday at QPR. A player took his top off, and you could see this little vest that they wear. It's a GPS vest, and it tells you all the information. It goes back to a laptop, and the sports scientist will say, this player's in the red zone. This is live data, and therefore he needs to be taken off because he's at risk of injury. So the information is all there. Yeah, to the nth degree, you can tell exactly where a player is in terms of their physicality and their state on the pitch. So there is science backing up what he says. His argument is, why couldn't Man United play today? And why couldn't we have just had the extra day's rest and played on the Sunday? Listen, it is what it is. They did get through, but the quotes were quite strong afterwards. He said, "I don't understand how the players survived out there. It's unacceptable to let us play today. It's impossible for the health of the players. It's not normal." Now, it's interesting because Arsenal played yesterday, and their manager, Mikel Arteta, an old friend of Pep Guardiola, both Spaniards, he came out and said, "I agree with Pep. We've been flogged as well." And I wonder whether there's a little bit of messaging going around, because one of the debates we've had this week is about the FA Cup replays and how many extra matches we played and how much the schedule is being loaded onto the players. And they've had it hard this week. The argument has gone one way, and it's not often that a football debate invites the Prime Minister and the leader of Her Majesty's His Majesty's loyal opposition to get involved in the debates. They obviously wanted to seize a bit of an initiative and change the narrative, and I think they probably did that yesterday. Yeah. Nonetheless, City are through. United are up this afternoon at 3:30 against Coventry.
Right. What we're seeing today, Burnley...
No, Coventry.
Coventry. Burnley was yesterday, wasn't it?
Burnley was yesterday. They've given themselves a fighting chance because they've been on their uppers all season. They've been really struggling, and their manager's been criticised, Vincent Kompany, as I mentioned last hour, for not changing his principles, not adapting to life in the Premier League. It's all very well smashing teams every week, winning the Championship. Different kettle of fish when you get to the Premier League, when you get to that really top elite level of the domestic game. But they won 4-1 away at Sheffield United. They're within 3 points of safety. Nottingham Forest play Everton at Goodison Park today at 1:30. The two teams who've had points deducted may still have more points deducted as well. It's in Burnley's interest to keep in touch, because you never know, you might get a bit of luck in the courts, which say that they could, with the points deduction, Burnley could find themselves safe. But so it's interesting at the top, it's interesting just below the top, it's interesting at the bottom as well, and I'm loving it.
Just very quickly on the Grand Prix.
Yes,
because we had underway now, but we had a Red Bull 1-2 on the grid, didn't we?
We did, yeah. I mean, look, it looks processional again. I'm longing for the days of the Christian Horner scandal of a month ago, because at least it meant F1 was interesting to discuss. We saw the sprint race yesterday. Lewis Hamilton performing very well. We finished 18th on the grid yesterday, which is and that crystallises this problem in lots of ways, because He performed well one day and not so well the next. He can't find any consistency. I think when he goes to Ferrari next season, it might be more interesting.
OK. Aidan, thank you very much.
Good to see you this weekend, both of you.
Yeah, good to see
well,
you.
yes. we'll see you next.
Will we?
Yeah.
Oh, well, OK, fine.
Yeah.
I'll stay a bit longer if you really want.
No, you'd be very welcome to. You to help us chat through the papers. We'll do that in a couple of minutes with Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In every corner of the world, people celebrate English tradition and values as members of the Royal Society of St George. Yet here in England, branches are closing as membership dwindles.
I feel that in this country, St George is all but dead and buried.
Until recently, Stephen Warden from Wigston was president of the Leicestershire branch. Despite spending £1,500 of his own money advertising, he couldn't find enough members to keep it running.
I did everything humanly possible to get new members into the branch from the local environment, but they were just not interested in joining.
He thinks changing demographics and declining interest in the society's values contributed to disappearing membership. But he also blames political leadership at national and local levels. Stephen claims his proposal for a St George's Day parade was repeatedly rejected by Leicester City Council over 10 years. A celebration is planned for St George's Day, but like most cities and towns, no parade will pass through the streets. A Leicester City Council spokesperson said, Leicester's annual celebrations of St George's Day have been organised and funded by the City Council for many decades, and they remain an important part of the city's festival calendar. Some in Leicester say they would like to see more done to celebrate England's patron saint.
I think it's a sign of patriotism. I think it helps the country. We celebrate a lot of religious festivals here.
People forget, I think, what is important to England.
Maybe it's been sort of jumped onto with the wrong crowd, but I think nowadays it's just completely different.
Back in Wigston, St George's Cross flies above Stephen's home.
It makes me feel good because I know at least I've not forgotten St George if everybody else has.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Talking of tea this morning as we are, because it's National Tea Day, Noddy Holder. Morning, Nod. He says there's less tea in the tea bags these days, so he has to put an extra bag in the pot. But you are meant to put one in for the pot anyway, aren't you?
Well, with the pot thing, it's a bag a person, isn't it?
It is, but then one for the pot.
And then one additional.
Yeah, one for the pot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, never heard of one for the pot.
No.
Well, she's never lived.
I've heard of it. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But it's called shrinkflation, isn't it? Where instead of reducing the price, they just reduce the size.
Yeah.
And a box of donuts at a very famous donut shop used to have 12 in a box. Now it's got 9 in.
Wow.
And we're going to be talking about shrinkflation of potatoes for you roast fans in a moment.
Yes.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, as you can see, Emma Wolfe and the ever-chatty Andy Jones is here, barging their way into our output. No, it's all good. All right, let's have a look at... wet wipes, Emma, in the Mail on Sunday.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. They actually contribute to 90% of sewage backup. So if things back up, why are people flushing them? Anyway, wet wipes are going to be banned. There's legislation finally coming through. There's a public consultation again. even though 96% of people polled said wet wipes should be banned, they really, really contribute to plastic pollution. People maybe don't realise this. They have plastic in. They clog up the waterways. They kill wildlife. They create these sewage backups. They block the sewers. They're choking our rivers and oceans. Labour, apparently, and the Conservatives are fully behind this. Steve Barclay wants to really ban wet wipes and be sort of world-leading on this.
And I'll tell you what's also a big problem is the flushable wet toilet paper. If you talk to any plumber, says they don't flush.
Oh.
Oh, really?
They don't flush. They will. They're meant to dissolve, but they will block your toilet.
We're going to be all filthy.
No one
wet
should be-
wipes, no toilet roll.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
You can have ordinary toilet rolls, all right. Just the wet ones.
Are the flushable wet wipes?
Flushable wet wipes, yeah.
Don't go near them.
Well, why not put them in the bin? I mean, in TV, lots of people use wet wipes for taking off TV makeup, which isn't really that good. But anyway, lots of women use them as facial wipes, and then lots of people like me have used them on their babies' bottoms for years and years and years. But A, get the eco-friendly ones. B, you know, put them in the bin, don't put them down the lavatory. It really is shocking to think of people flushing them away, and it's amazing how many people want to, you know, agree with a ban, and they're actually saying, why do we need another 6-week consultation?
Well, you've just got to be... I'll tell you what the other thing is. Poo bags for dogs. Don't buy the plastic ones. Buy the ones that... They seem exactly the same, but it's like they're made out of cornstarch or something.
Yeah.
You know the difference.
Yeah, but people that put the poo in the bags and then leave the bags on the street. What is that about? Put it in the bin.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Oh, that is disgraceful.
I mean, I'd prefer them to leave the poo on the street, because at least that will kind of wash away and eventually... I mean,
Yeah. I hope people are enjoying their breakfast.
Well, yes. Or your cup of tea
We're
this
a
morning.
nation of dog lovers. You know,
We can all relate, can't we?
You've got to do it.
Andy, let's have a look at this potato. Prices soaring through the roof. If you like crisps, you might be in trouble.
Well, I was very surprised at my local chip shop in Barnet, walking down the street, getting a cone of chips, that one portion of chips was £5.
Oh.
Yeah.
£5. No sauce, no fish, no whatever else, just chips. £5 for a bag. And this is because of our record rainfall has hit the nation's shopping baskets. We've had a spud washout. And this is being seen on the shelves because instead of getting again, shrinkflation, instead of getting a 2.5 kilo bag, it's now only 2 kilos a bag for the same price. So if you're peeling spuds or for the roast this afternoon, you'll notice that you've got less in your bag than before. And potatoes are getting more and more expensive. And, of course, potato used to be just a filler in ready meals and pies, meat and potato pie. It was the cheapest part of the pie, right? And now it's steadily becoming very expensive.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's all very well if you're having a roast and you maybe don't notice it as much or you're doing a couple of jacket potatoes. But if you're a chippy, I would imagine this is, you know, these are your costs. Fish prices, you know, all over the place. But yeah, you need to buy huge amounts of potatoes. So 2.5 kilos down to 2 kilos.
Yeah.
But £5 for a portion of chips.
I thought mine
that sounds
was
a lot.
Mine is 4.
Yeah, I didn't buy them.
For a medium size.
It does cost. If we got the chippy, you end up costing £25 by the time you've come out.
Really?
Is that a posh chippy?
No,
is that
no.
Posh? I don't know, smoked salmon instead of fish, or
It's cod and chips. Wow. And I have chips and something else, depending on what else they've got on.
Veggie sausage or something.
A veggie something or other, and then 2 pots of mushy peas and a curry sauce or whatever.
£25.
It comes out about £25. Oh, it's
but it's good, isn't it?
Really good.
Oh, posh chippy, don't do posh chippy.
And you're supporting a local, community and all of that. It's really good,
Yeah, no, it's good. It has got very, very expensive, though, hasn't it, going to the chip shop? OK, shall we have a look, Emma, at Just Stop Oil? And they could be causing havoc at the airports this summer.
Well, Andy and I have been ranting about this. I mean, does anybody support Just Stop Oil in the way that they're going about this? So they are planning yet again, and we did cover this story a few weeks ago, they are planning yet again to ground hundreds of flights this summer to cause chaos at airports, very much targeting the, nice domestic flights, but people going just to Spain, Greece, Turkey, people just
How are they going to get in, though?
Right, so they're going to storm the terminal buildings, they're going to glue themselves to runways, they're going to clamber onto jets out in Spain and Greece and Turkey. This is illegal. If any of us did that, we would be arrested. And these people feel that that's what they can do, and they're telling everybody else that they're wrecking the planet. This is an undercover reporter for the Mirror who attend one of their meetings. And these are their plans, and they're quite open about these.
And this is from Phoebe Plummer, who's one of the noisier voices in Just Up All. She glued herself to the wall at the National Gallery previously and had spent some time in custody. What's really interesting is you think this is about saving the planet. Plummer, shouty speech, says, it's time to wake up and get real. No summer holiday is more important than food security, housing and the lives of your loved ones. Flying is a symbol of gross wealth inequality, and we need change. So it's not even about saving the planet anymore. It's about food inequality. The very idea that the kind of people who are having package deals to Spain, Turkey and Greece are somehow, you know, gilded billionaires in private jets.
Oh, yeah.
They're attacking the people that can afford it the least.
For a family holiday, a summer holiday. And that's what they do. And they, you know, there are so many targets you could attack. We were talking about concrete. You could, you know, you could attack lithium battery production. You could attack. You could target landfill. The terrible pollution in our planet.
And they're never outside the Chinese
industries.
embassy, the US embassy. They're never outside big manufacturer. And there was a great picture which I think summed up Just Up All, where they were prostrating themselves across the road in London, which of course has never been more eco-friendly in terms of clean air and measures to stop you gas guzzlers. And stuck behind this protest were electric cars, buses, bicycles, people doing exactly the things that Just Up All are already asking them to do. We are punishing people that are already bending over backwards for green initiatives, and rightly so. I want to protect the planet, and they're doing absolutely nothing about attacking the major manufacturer or the nations that are continuing to pollute without any censure whatsoever. And they are attacking normal, hard-working people, and again, it's another moron with pink hair telling us what to do.
I just don't know why we unglued them. I've said this.
I don't even know why they're allowed in the perimeter fence. It's not safe.
No.
Why are they allowed in terminal buildings? Why are they allowed onto runways?
Well, it's so dangerous.
She glued herself to the wall at the National Gallery.
Leave her
there.
Leave her there.
See how long she lasts without her Uber deliveries of, you know.
She'd change her mind after.
Call it. You could put a sign next to her as an exhibit and call her just Nepo Baby Hubris, and she could be an exhibit as part of the gallery.
Yeah. Oh, dear me. Drives me mad. And look, it's been a joy to see you two this morning. Emma, Andy, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to glue ourselves here. This
well, you can stay.
You can stay as long as you like. You can take a look at the weather with us, with Ellie.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to our latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across some North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
This new hate crime bill on women's issues, you think this is the least funny April Fool's joke in history?
Yeah, although the Scottish Government and the Scottish Police do seem to be trying to make a bit of a joke of it when, you know, their campaign Hate Hurts is fronted by a hate monster who's a sort of cuddly, bright red Muppet-style thing. And some of the things that Humza Yousaf said about it were from a soft play centre over the weekend. But yeah, it's really not a joke. It's not actually clever lawyers who know the wording of the law who enforce the law. It's the police. And the police have basically not been trained on this at all. There's a 2-hour online training course they're meant to have done, and lots of them haven't already done it. And we know from the way that the police have been talking about it that they're wildly overstretching what it might actually be to be, in particular, abusive, which is one of the words in the new law, and specifically on the issue of transgender identity. To claim that just noticing the fact that there are two sexes and that sex can't change is meant to be hateful, that, you know, even after years of trying to study it, I can't understand why people hold this belief. But it's part and parcel of a pattern of legal measures that the Scottish Government has either introduced or has sought to introduce. So it tried to introduce gender self-ID, but that was overruled by Westminster because it was out of the power of the devolved government. It's still attempting to bring in a conversion therapy law, which sounds nice but isn't nice. It actually criminalises proper ethical treatment of gender-confused youngsters. They're trying to say that men who have certificates saying that they're women count as women for a particular measure to do with public boards. And then this hate crime law, which tries to make it really difficult for someone to talk in a factual, reality-based, clear, understandable way about all these measures. It all adds up to a sort of an authoritarian attempt to deny the fact that human beings are mammals and come in two sexes, and that recognising that matters for women's rights especially.
Morning to you, it's 9 o'clock, Sunday the 21st of April. Today, Suella Braverman is leading calls for the Metropolitan Police Chief to quit over what she brands a litany of failures during recent pro-Palestine marches.
Labour have vowed to crack down on yobbish behaviour as shock new figures show 20 million Brits suffered at the hands of troublemakers.
After months of deadlock, US Congress have united to approve £49 billion, $61 billion in foreign aid for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan.
There's still some sunshine on offer for many of us today, but some rain arriving in the north later. Join me for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Lots of you getting in touch this morning. Chris says, hi, Stephen and Ellie. Can you please say happy birthday to my nan, Mrs. Joan Robinson in Bradford. She is 93 years old today.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Happy birthday, Joan.
Day.
Happy 93rd.
Interesting on the whole wet wipes thing.
Oh, yeah.
Kerry-Ann Moran has been in touch. She says she's a care worker, which is a blooming hard job.
It is.
She said, I really hope they don't ban wet wipes. Just put them in the bin. I guess, do you know what I think will happen with this is, I think they will ban them. Seems to be pretty clear that that's what they're going to do. However, what that then forces the manufacturer to do is to make wet wipes that are better.
Biodegradable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no plastic, but also ones that may dissolve more easily in water and all that sort of thing. Because, I mean, toilet paper, there's great hoo-ha with toilet paper, you know, where they make it. They used to make it where I come from. And it's all this stuff to make it so it dissolves in water.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So it's what you need with wet wipes and things, isn't it? So I think you'll be all right, Kerry-Ann. It just, you know, they just need to... It forces them to reinvent it, doesn't it?
In this modern world, they should, really, shouldn't they? Lots of lovely comments about a breakfast show, a tea-themed breakfast show that we were talking about.
Right, yes.
Going down to Tregothnan, which is this tea bag here. We were talking to Tregothnan a little bit earlier on. June says, morning, Ellie and Stephen. Yes, let's have a nice breakfast show in nice surroundings outside. I love you too, and I love tea.
Yeah, it'd be lovely to do a show down there on a nice day, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and Net Tea says, yes, please, to a breakfast tea show. I'd love to know more about where they're growing the tea, more about well-known people who've planted tea bushes, different types of tea, and also how the tea grows.
Yeah, and we've been invited to plant a GB News tea bush down there at Tregothnan. But it looks a beautiful place.
Which we want to go to. We're not allowed to stay in the main house. We did ask.
No.
We're going to be sent away to the guest quarters, but we don't mind, do we?
It's fine. The servants' quarters around the back. It's fine.
Across the river, I think it was.
It was across
Not
the
even
river.
on the land.
But that works for me.
We're fine with that. That's
yeah,
fine.
we've already planned it. We do a nice little VT for you about planting the bush and how to drink tea and all that sort of thing. But then we'll go on a nice walk.
Then we said we're going a long walk and then we'll go for a pub lunch. What's the other thing we said we'd do?
I don't know.
It often descends into... I've got a few trips planned, haven't I, up my sleeve?
Yes. Most of them go around food, don't they? So you plan them around the restaurants.
And what we're going to do for brunch.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go. So we'll be going down to Tregothnan before you can say Jack Robinson. Right, let's have a look at the main news this morning. And the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is leading calls today for the Met Police Chief, Mark Rowley, to quit over what she describes as a litany of failures in policing pro-Palestine marches.
Well, the latest scandal embroiling the Met is the force's reaction after an officer used the term openly Jewish to describe an anti-Semitism activist.
Well, of course, Camilla Tomlin is going to be here at 9:30 this morning with all the politics you need. And, I mean, this is Camilla... the fact that the former Home Secretary is getting stuck into this... piling an awful lot of pressure, actually, on the Home Office and, indeed, on Sadiq Khan to make the Met change their tactics.
Well, it's perhaps not that surprising that the former Home Secretary has been quite robust on this, because I don't think she was ever wholly supported of Mark Rowley's appointment that was made by Priti Patel, her predecessor. So that's interesting in the context of the politics of the moment, because, of course, we know that Suella Braverman is sort of angling for a future leadership position. You could also argue that Priti Patel is, along with Penny Mordaunt and Kemi Badnoch. But put that aside for the moment. I think the scenes that we saw unfold with Gideon Falter, the head of the campaign against anti-Semitism, who's been a friend to my show, has been on my show, has been on GB News quite a lot in the advent of the October the 7th attacks, you know, to basically be told that he's a provocation simply because he is, quotes, openly Jewish, poses a huge problem for the Met and the Commissioner. We've already had Braverman while she was in office. In fact, it was one of the reasons she had to leave office in the end, why she was effectively sacked by Rishi Sunak, is because she accused the police at the time of playing favourites. And we keep on seeing this played out on the streets of London, with the pro-Palestinian marchers sort of seemingly left alone by police, while those who are just walking about, going about their daily business. In this case, Gideon Falter had nothing to do with the march. He just happened to find himself in Aldwych at the wrong time in a skull cap. So I'm going to be asking Claire Coutinho, who's here on behalf of the government this morning. She's the Climate Change and Energy Secretary, but at the same time, of course, I'm going to be asking her what her reaction is to Braverman calling for Rowley's resignation. Gideon Falter himself has said that. And also the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, has been quite robust about this. He's been quoted in the Sunday Telegraph saying, you know, why is it that Jews seem to be treated uniquely in this country? They don't seem to be given the protections that other ethnic minorities are afforded. So we'll talk about that. I'm also grateful to have on the show John Woodcock, now known as Lord Wolney. He's the government's advisor on political violence and these sorts of demonstrations. Last year, he was saying these marches will have to stop if they seem to be intimidatory towards Jews. The Jewish community will say that we crossed that Rubicon some weeks ago. So I'll be very intrigued to his reaction to these calls for the Met Police Commissioner to resign. Also, I'll be speaking to Danny Kruger. The GB News viewers and listeners will be familiar with him because of his association with the New Conservatives, with Miriam Cates. We've got the May elections coming up. Last week, I was picking up, particularly at Liz Truss's book launch, funny enough, a little bit of chatter about the fact that if these May elections are really, really bad, as is forecast, are we going to be seeing more no letters of no confidence in against Rishi Sunak? You know, even some some suggestions last week that he might not be in office by the end of June. Let's put that to Danny Kruger. Also, I'm going to have Tim Shipman in, chief political commentator for the Sunday Times. He's got a new book out which is analysing Theresa May's premiership. And I'm going to be speaking to former prison officer Ian Aitchison about the state of Britain's prisons too.
OK, Camilla, lots to get your teeth into there. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you at 9:30.
Now, the Labour Party has vowed to crack down on crime as figures obtained under the Freedom of Information Act have shown that charges for shoplifting have fallen by about 16% since 2018.
Yes, the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has pledged that a Labour government will get tougher on antisocial behaviour with new respect orders to take on gangs and repeat offenders.
She's also pledged 13,000 neighbourhood police, community support officers and special constables to try to restore community safety.
Well, earlier we spoke with former police officer and the host of the Protect and Serve podcast, Oliver Lawrence.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Ellie. It's very interesting. A huge announcement by the opposition Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, announcing these additional powers or legislation which will be coming through along with additional resources. Now, the announcement of additional resources will always be welcome to any member of the public, but we've got to look at the actual particular problem. Now, antisocial behaviour, there are already more than 32 pieces of legislation, acts, regulation, policy and procedure allowing police officers to deal with antisocial behaviour. So more legislation, more policy, more procedure isn't going to fix it. I would argue that we've got more than enough with more than 32 pieces of legislation already out there. What we need is proper enforcement and proper execution of the legislation by our justice system to make sure that we have penalties for people that commit these crimes in our communities.
What do you make then of the 13,000 suggested neighbourhood police, PCSOs and special constables to restore community safety? Because, I mean, a lot of this surely is about old-school policing, isn't it? Bobby's on the beat.
100%. And to be honest with you, PCSOs have proven to be very successful in the past, but I do truly believe we're at a point now where we need police officers that can have the powers of arrest, police officers that can have the power of interview and charge. PCSOs are very restricted in what they can do out on the streets and ultimately need a police officer to support them. So in my view, it's going to have to come back to having, as you say, Bobby's on the beat, more police officer numbers in our communities, liaising with the community members so they can be fed that intelligence so we know who are the individuals causing all the issues and we can take proper instructions to deal with these people properly. But we need an effective criminal justice system. We need our courts to start sentencing people. And that means putting people in prison. And our prisons are bursting at the seams. So we don't need only investment at the enforcement stage. We also need it at the criminal justice end when we put people in prison who repeat offenders.
Which is the issue with all of this, isn't it, Oliver? Because people can say what they like, make these promises and pledges and, you know, right, all sounds pretty good. Even if they stick to their word, the problem is we're not going to see the impact of this for, what, 5 or 6 years?
Stephen, absolutely correct. And what I think is frustrating the public at the moment is I can't remember a time where a chief constable came out and started publicly talking about how they're going to tackle crime. We've got more chief constables racing to get in front of a microphone to acknowledge their force is institutionally racist than we have chief constables racing to the microphone to acknowledge there is an issue with crime and this is how they're going to tackle it. You know, I don't know, and I'm quite concerned what Sir Mark Rowley and Damien Owens have been doing for the past couple of years in London, because I don't think the city is any safer than when they came into power. So we need to have a change of thought around what we're supposed to be doing, how we're going to enact on that, and we need discipline and enforcement.
Now, it's nearing St George's Day, and to mark the day, which celebrates our patron saint, parades will be taking place all over the country this weekend.
Yes, and of course on Tuesday itself, of course. But anyway, some taking place at the weekend, understandably so. Our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley is at one of them today. Morning, Anna.
Good morning to you both. Yes, I'm here in Morley, near Leeds, and it's been branded as the north of England's most patriotic town. There's going to be 1,500 people in a parade today going through the town, led by St George. A man dressed as St George on a horse leading the parade to the rugby ground, where there's going to be a lot going on. I'm joined by Councillor Wyn Kidger. She's the chair for the Royal Society of St George in Leeds. Just tell us a little bit about the society and the day today and why we should celebrate St George's Day.
Well, this was started just roughly about 17 years ago, and every year we held the parade and the event, and we only had a break for 2 years because of COVID, obviously. It was started by Councillor Joe Teckley and Councillor Judith Elliott, who felt that we were lacking Englishness in Morley. So we applied to the Royal Society of St George, and the patron is the King. Well, it was the Queen then, and we were advised, because Leeds don't have a branch, to be called Leeds, although we keep it in Morley. So we just felt that we need to celebrate. There's so much goes on about St George's and should, you know, oh, well, we've got other days and what have you. But we should be celebrating because that's what we're all about in England. So we just felt it was really strong. We have a parade of over 1,500 in the parade. We normally have the reenactment from the armories, but unfortunately, because of the ground being saturated at the rugby club, we're having to adhere to their ruling. And you know, we've just got the military vehicles, but there'll be about 800 scouts, brownies, and not just from Morley, but from all of the outer South Leeds area. So it's an absolute amazing thing to see. Obviously, we're led by St George on horseback. His name, his name is Kevin Morley of all names, but anyway, that's his name, and he will lead the procession. And at the end, we have a bus that takes all the dignitaries up, because we will have the Lord Mayor, we've got the Lord Lieutenant, we've got the Mayor of Morley, we've got all the dignitaries will be on the steps, and we wave past. We stand on these steps here and we wave past, and they all wave to us, and it's just a very, very, very proud moment. I often quite get choked with it, because it's just celebrating all what's good about England.
And what do you think that is, and why do you think we should be proud of England and have St George's Day?
Well, oh gosh, you've got the town hall. I apologise for the town hall bells, but yeah, we you know, we can lose our identity. You know, we are a multicultural faith in the country now, and we celebrate all sorts of different religions and what have you. But I just think sometimes we can get St George's can get pushed away, whereas we are proud to be England, and it's all about. It's not being. You know, it's just being patriotic, and it's not being damning to anybody else, but we're just proud of what we want, and we just need to show our proudness. And we had a fantastic service at the Minster on Thursday and filled it with Morley people, and we had the local choirs, the schools, the primary schools, the senior schools, and it was just wonderful, lovely readings. And, you know, we're visited by the Lord Lieutenant, you know, representing the King, which is and astounding. Plus, we have all the mayors coming, and it's just an amazing, amazing thing. I'm very, very proud of it. Very proud.
And why is Morley so patriotic? You know, when you think of England, what is it that you've?
Well, I just think, you know, 17 years ago we started it, and we are the first one in the north of England, and then it's just gone on and it's built up, and it's just getting bigger all the time. You know, I've even got a traction engine this year coming in the parade, so I'm just so proud. We've had scooters in the past, but as I say, the children all dress up, and it's just an amazing event. It really is. Anybody who hasn't been to Morley and been to our event are missing out.
Thank you so much, Wynne.
Can I present you with a Morley badge?
Thank you so much. This is lovely. I've just been presented with a Morley badge, if you can see there. I'll pop that on the lapel. Thank you very much. But yes, certainly get to Morley. It's going to be a fantastic event, and we're going to be covering it throughout the day. I can't wait for the parade.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh,
have a good day.
That was
Thanks,
lovely.
Wynne.
Thank you, Anna Riley, for bringing that to us. And how great was Wynne as well?
Brilliant.
Brilliant
you see,
stuff.
And that's it makes me sound like I'm anti-Southern. I'm not anti-Southern, but that's a proper good Northern woman there.
I enjoyed that as well. I like the Leeds accent.
And there's a nice enthusiasm for what's going on. Brilliant.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Makes me feel sort of
homesick.
Hearing people like that, yeah. Because it's just they're the people I grew up with, people like that.
I know.
Chit-chatting away.
I know. And she
Yeah,
she's right. Chit-chatter. She was great. She was great. I had a lot of time for Wynne.
All right, now there's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a Greek cruise worth 10 grand, travel goodies, and then 10 grand in tax-free cash on top of all of that. Here's all the details you need.
Don't miss your chance to win our biggest prize so far. There's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For another chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, we're going to be talking about that huge aid package that Congress has finally approved in the United States, £61 billion. Give you all the details in a couple of minutes.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
You think this country needs new gas power stations. Apparently, this will all be about trying to get some form of energy security. Rishi Sunak has upset people today with this suggestion, people saying that actually this would do more damage to climate change than it would do good. Where are you on it, Richard?
I'll tell you exactly where. We need a lot more gas power stations and nuclear power stations because quite often the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. Last week, we imported 16% of all our electricity because we haven't got enough capacity in the UK, and we're now totally over-reliant on renewables.
The part of the problem is the lack of storage capacity, which the government has finally got round to addressing. I think this as backup is actually quite a sensible idea. But they are not doing anything, as far as I can tell. At the moment, it will be retrofitted to have storage capability, which seems to be utterly bonkers. I mean, anyone who's got solar panels, you know very well you're storing up energy. So it's about storage as much as production. They could have gone, 20 years ago, we could have had nuclear power. We could have done more. We haven't looked far enough ahead in the future, and we are in grave danger of making the same mistake. I mean, the other side of this is, what is the difference going to be? Blackouts are, they're irritating and...
Irritating? It'd be disastrous. It would literally destroy our economy.
Well, they would be now, but, some of us remember 3-day weeks and things like that. And in fact, I grew up thinking that everybody had, at least a couple of days a week when they had to eat off a primus stove and things.
This is, again, I don't want to harp on, but this is one of the problems in the politics in our country, isn't it? So many politicians, they just think in election cycles. Absolutely. They just think, what can I do and say to get my own backside re-elected at the next general election? They're not always looking ahead at actually, politics aside, what is genuinely the best thing for this country.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Now, the US House of Representatives has finally approved a $61 billion aid package for Ukraine.
Yes, Democrats and Republicans joined together after months of deadlock over renewed American support to help Ukraine fend off Russia's invasion. This was after some objected to sending money overseas instead of the US-Mexico border.
Well, earlier we spoke to Chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson.
The general consensus is that this is great news. Wish it happened earlier.
Why was it being blocked?
I think it was being blocked for good reason. Many Republicans wanted to tie this to the border. And contrary to popular belief where, the argument was we need more money for the border, it wasn't actually money. And in the initial proposals had more funding for the border. From the Democrats, that's not the point. They could flip the switch and and shut down the border to a certain degree. So it wasn't as much the money going out the door, it's that the Biden administration decided to open the border when he took over in early 21. So if they had this could have happened, this funding could have happened 2 months ago if Biden had agreed to shut down the border like it was closed during the Trump administration.
And yet, how does it fit within, I mean, I don't know what your personal view is, but for a lot of Republicans who say we are fed up of being the world's policeman.
Yeah, there is that element of the party. There's an isolationist wing in the Republican Party. It's relatively small. You saw that the majority of Republicans, the great majority of Republicans, voted for all of the funding yesterday. It is this fringe kind of extreme element. It's not necessarily conservative. You know, sometimes you read, oh, the conservative wing of the party. That's not the case. The conservative movement is very pro-defense. You know, we endorse military spending. We endorse defense spending. Biden has cut the budget in real terms by 2% for the last 2 years. That's dangerous at a time like this. So, yes, there is this fringe wing, and those are the ones that will probably or possibly file a motion to vacate on Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who really pushed this aid bill through.
I mean, we've just heard from Zelensky there, who says he's very grateful. What do you think this means for Ukraine, and what message does it send to Putin?
Well, it definitely sends a message that the U.S. is willing to support the defense of Ukraine, and this is a good thing. And you know, even this is very Reagan-esque in many ways, where, you know, the Reagan administration was very much behind our allies, behind democracies fighting for their freedom. You had proxy wars going on at that time in Nicaragua, for example. And so this is a way for the U.S. to get ahead of it, right? We'd rather help Ukraine defend itself now than have a bigger problem later. It's actually cost-effective in many ways.
And of course, that also includes, I mean, there's more money going to Israel as a result of this. There's also money going to Taiwan.
That's right. That's right. And then the last element is is forcing TikTok to be sold to an American owner.
Yes.
And that was another priority, but, you know, and that was bipartisan in many ways.
So tell us a bit more about this TikTok part of what was going on yesterday.
Yes, there is that threat that TikTok, you know, being owned by the Chinese, tied to the Chinese to the CCP as well as the PRC. You know, there's an argument that is data and potential influence peddling that we just can't live with. And, you know, it's similar to restrictions on media ownership or television ownership by foreign owners. And so this was important to, again, it was for the most part bipartisan, and it's a great security risk to have the Chinese owning that kind of data.
Well, that's it from us today. We are with you Tuesday, aren't we?
From 9 till 5,
yes.
Celebrating St George's Day.
We're very good, aren't we?
We are.
We wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah, we wouldn't. Here's your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to our latest GB News weather from the Met Office. High pressure is still sticking around through the rest of today, however we will see some patchy rain in places, particularly across parts of Scotland. It's quite a cloudy and damp start here this morning. The best of the sunshine across southeastern parts of England, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, so a good day if you're running the London Marathon with a light northwesterly breeze but generally staying dry through much of the day. That cloud and rain across eastern parts of Scotland will slowly sink its way southwards as we go through the rest of the day. I'm feeling quite chilly under that cloud and rain as well, struggling to reach the double figures across the North Sea coast, but feeling much more pleasant in that sunshine further south, highs of 14 or 15 degrees. Through the rest of Sunday, that cloud continues to spread its way southwards, reaching parts of northern England and parts of Wales overnight and into the early hours of Monday morning. Southeastern parts of England, though, perhaps still holding on to some of those clearer skies, and for Northern Ireland too, and turning quite chilly under those clear skies again. We could see some frost in places, although not quite as cold under that cloud and rain, and parts of Scotland holding up into the high single figures. So a bit of a cloudier start for most of us on Monday. Cloud and rain again continues to spread its way southwards through the day. Southeastern parts of England still holding on to some of those clearer skies, so some sunshine as we go through the morning, but definitely turning cloudier into the afternoon as well. Feeling a little bit warmer, particularly across parts of Scotland on Monday. We could see highs of 15, 16 degrees, but feeling chillier again under all that cloud and rain.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers. sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the